See, we got some latitude. Hey, good evening. Hate to break up all the social. That was engaging. Great to see so many people here. Welcome all of you to our Valentine's Day, meeting of 2022 in February, and may we express some love and respect today as a result of Valentine's Day. So it's good to have you here. We'll open our meeting as we usually do with our Pledge of Allegiance, and our invocation, I understand, is by our own counselor, Jake Gilbert. Is that right, Jake? Sure. All right. Please rise. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. All right. Lord, we come to you in prayer tonight, just thanking you so much that we can meet here publicly and gather and do business here for our wonderful city. Pray, Lord, in the spirit of love, that we can love you with all of our heart and mind and soul and strength, and love our neighbor as ourselves. Pray, Lord, that you give us wisdom and discernment to be like Caleb and Joshua and seek out, be of a different spirit, and seek out the very best blessings you have for us, and help us to understand what those are. Bless this wonderful city, Lord, as we move forward today and in the future. Keep all of our residents safe and careful. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Jake Gilbert, thank you. That was very well done. Mr. Johns, would you run the meeting, please, sir?
I will. Thank you, Mayor. Cindy Gosser, would you please note the presence of a quorum?
Joe Edwards.
Here.
Scott Willis.
Here.
Cindy Spalgeric. Here. Jake Gilbert.
Here.
Mike Johns.
Here.
Scott Fry.
Here.
Troy Patton.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Okay. The first item on our meeting tonight is the approval of the minutes from the meeting of January 24th. Councilors, do you have any questions or comments, additions to those minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the 24th?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Scott Willis, seconded by Troy Patton. Cindy, call the roll, please.
Cindy Spalgeric.
Yes.
Jake Gilbert.
Yes.
Scott Willis.
Yes.
Joe Edwards.
Yes.
Mike Johns.
Yes.
Scott Fry.
Yes.
Troy Patton.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next item on tonight is the approval of the claims docket for today, February 14th. Councilors, do you have any questions or comments regarding the claims docket?
I have one. Admin services, there is a $40,000 claim for mobile analytics solutions to Buxton Company. Just wondering, I don't see anything like that usually. Can someone let me know what that is?
John Rogers, administration. That's for the Buxton. It's a analytics tool we use to study the customers at the sports campus.
Okay. Is there a reason it's not coming out of 640?
Yeah, we've always had it in the admin. We also use it for some as an economic development sourcing tool. So sometimes we can see trends with different types of businesses with those customers that are related to those customers, and then we can use that to go out and solicit business.
Okay.
Does that help?
I think so.
Okay.
John, while you're there, I've got just one observation I wanted to share with you. First of all, we've got a BKD bill on there for $38,803, and those are for August invoices. All right, and I noticed that another invoice came in for Baker Tilly the day after this closed, so that would have been last Wednesday, in the amount of, actually two of them. One's for September invoices of $32,000, and one for November invoices of $12,171. So when we look at this, just to give you a heads up, Year-to-date, that's $82,947,000 charged from last year's invoices against an account that we only have budgeted $140,000 for the year. So heads up, we're 6 weeks in and we've spent 59% of that budget for admin consulting. So two things, make you aware of that. And then the second thing, if you could just double check and make sure that the clerk treasurer's office is receiving the invoices on a timely basis.
I can do that, yes.
Okay, appreciate that.
I have one quick comment on that. And it's okay, John, you're good. Is that, we received these invoices, and some of the billings are from May of last year, and just received in September for the examination that we prepared. And I spoke to Baker Tilly about it, and I said, it's a little odd that we're receiving these. And he says to me, well, I gave them to you. You should have had them processed. And I said, well, I'm a city councilor. It's not my directive to have these processed. And he said, well, it sounds like you guys have a systems and processes issue. I said, well, that's interesting because you guys just did a full examination of our systems and processes and you didn't have to mention that one time. But we spent $500,000 doing it. And I would just make a note of that. We use Baker Tilly for other things. I'm not real enthused maybe about that at this point. If we can't seem to get a billing done, from last May,
Yeah.
it's February
Absolutely.
of 2022. So, it's just a note.
Agreed. So, any other comments, questions, clarifications? Do I have a motion to approve the claims docket for February 14th?
Motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Troy Patton, seconded by Scott Willis. Cindy, would you call the roll, please?
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeric,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes,
Jake Gilbert.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
thank you. We've got two special presentations this evening. First presentation will be about, on the YMCA. And I think we've got Shannon Russell and Mitch Frazier from the YMCA. We're going to give us an update as to the progress.
Well, thanks very much for having us. I'm actually going to sub in. So thanks very much for listening to us. Mitch Frazier serves as our executive committee chair for our board for the getting a YMCA in Westfield, and then also Greg Highland, who is our new CEO for the YMCA of Greater Indianapolis. So I'm actually going to have them turn it over, but I'm happy to answer any questions at the end that anyone might have. I know I've had the opportunity to talk with you all, but I'm turning it over to them.
President Johns, members of the council, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. And I want to start this evening with sharing my sincere appreciation for each of you, for the work that you're doing, not just here tonight, but the work that you do for the city council, for our city. As a resident, I'm appreciative. And I don't know that often you get to hear that. So thank you. And I sincerely appreciate the work, the diligence, the due diligence that you're putting into these ARPA dollars as we think about how to best invest those, the highest and best use for the city. Just want to say thank you. Tonight, my objective is to share with you why I believe the Westfield YMCA is a good investment of those dollars, why it's a good investment of those dollars for us as a community, and why I truly believe this is a highest and best use of that money. Now, Greg Highland, as Shannon shared, is the new CEO of the YMCA of Indianapolis, the parent organization of what will soon be our Westfield Y. But before I turn it over to Greg to share more details about the financials of the project, where we're headed with the project, as a resident, I want to share two key areas that I and my wife feel so invested in this project, why I believe it's so important. And the first is, I believe this Y, as we've said before, is critical infrastructure by definition. And when I say critical infrastructure, what I mean is it is a place for this community to come together. Our Y is far more than a gym, it's far more than a pool, it's a place where people can come together. And if you think about what's happened to not just our community, but across the state, across this country, and around the world, amidst the pandemic, we need a place to come together. We've surveyed folks, we've shared that survey, I know, with the council. That was during the pandemic, and now we're still in the pandemic trying to come out of it, but never in history has there been more important time for us to create a place for people to come together. And we're not just creating a place where people can come together and grow their mental health and their spiritual health and their physical health. We're doing that in a way where those people can actually do that work they need to do if they have children. You know, as a dad of 2 kids, I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old at home tonight, probably all hopped up on chocolate and Starburst. But, you know, I think about, you know, if my wife were a single mom or I were a single dad, I couldn't go run. I couldn't go to an upskilling class. If I was unfortunate enough to be diagnosed with cancer and was in a Live Strong program, I couldn't go and take advantage of the programming that the YMCA has because, well, I wouldn't have childcare. You see, when we talk about critical infrastructure, this is more than just a place. This is a place with services that make our services accessible. No matter where you are socioeconomically, where you are as a family, this is a place that I believe, my wife and I believe, so many in this room, in this community believe, is critical infrastructure. Secondarily, I want to hit something as we talk about dollars. I want to hit capital efficiency because I believe this is an extremely capital efficient way to bring an important asset to one of the fastest growing communities in the state. Today, we don't have a community center, and I believe having a community center where we can come together, especially one located, thanks to the generosity of the Wheeler family, located right there at 181st Street and Wheeler Road. But to have a place that's on the Monon, that's connected in a very capital efficient way, meaning that if the city were to build a community center, perhaps it's possible that that could be done for $5 million. But what couldn't be done is long-term operations and maintenance. I mean, if you look at what it takes to run a facility of that size, even if we just look at overhead, people, place, it's real dollars. The ask we have before you, council, is one of an investment into critical infrastructure, and we're asking for it in a way that we believe is capital efficient. It's on us to operate it. It's on us to staff it. What we're asking for is that cornerstone investment into this facility to make it possible to bring this critical infrastructure to our great city. And with that, I'll turn it over to Greg Highland to walk through more of the details of the project. Thanks, Mitch. Thanks, Greg.
I want to echo Mitch's sentiments of gratitude to be here. I'm Greg Highland. I am the president and CEO for the YMCA of Greater Indianapolis. In the role now for about 3 months, but I've been with the Y for almost 32 years, all here in the Greater Indianapolis area, and truly believe in what the Y can do in communities, and just want to thank you for allowing us to continue this conversation. As we've shared with you before, there are municipal partnerships with Ys all across the state of Indiana. There's the one in Shelbyville that just opened up a few months ago, one in Peru that's going to be opening in a couple of weeks. Princeton, we've talked to you about the Y in Princeton. Greencastle is in the planning stages, and then some 20 years ago, the town of Fishers invested in the Y at Fishers. Hard to believe it's been 20 years. And our project that we're proposing includes all of the critical components that many would expect to see in a Y, but it also has an eye toward future expansion so that we can meet the needs of the community as the community grows and as the Y continues to grow. It has amenities like a field house, exercise studios, wellness centers, child care rooms, a teaching kitchen, and a chapel, all under one roof. But beyond the physical spaces of a Y, I think it's important for you all to know that the Y intends to make access to the Y and the programs and services that we provide easier than it ever has been. We've expanded our sliding fee scale so folks that are on the lower end of the earning spectrum will have just as much opportunity as other folks who can fully afford to enjoy the YMCA. We hope that it allows more community members to participate in programs like our chronic disease prevention programming, things that most people don't know that the Y does, but things like the diabetes prevention program that the Y in Indianapolis partnered with IU School of Health and actually developed that program that's the national model for the CDC now. Programs like enhanced fitness for arthritis management. Mitch referenced the Live Strong program for people who are diagnosed with cancer and cancer survivors. Or it might be adults and young adults in our rapid reskilling program, through our CNA certification programs and our QMA certification programs and our child care worker certification programs, trying to make sure that they have a better career. Or it could be teens who represent a delegation from Westfield in our youth and government program, or participate in college readiness programs and college tours. What we know is we've designed this Y so that it's accessible and it meets our mission to serve everyone. The last two words of our mission statement are for all. Our partnership with Westfield Washington Schools is great. We, as you know, we manage the natatorium that was built and opened a little over a year ago. And we've, through a lot of different partnerships that Shannon and the staff have worked on, we've partnered with local nonprofits already to get them into that space to use the water, partnered with Guerin Catholic High School to allow their kids to come in and swim for their swim team so they don't have to go to a pool in Lawrence or in Noblesville. So we're already building community with nonprofits and other folks in this community. And we just believe that the Y facility will only enhance that opportunity to serve people. We have a number of people from our steering committee here tonight. I want to thank them, each of them. We have a number of people from our board, and I think it just highlights the importance that they place on this project, and we're honored that they would spend their evening with us tonight. I spoke with our board chair, Andy Baroker, earlier today, and he wanted me to relay to you the importance that the Y places on this. As he said, there's no higher priority on our agenda than to get this project done this year. We want to get this started and moving forward so that we can bring the Y services to Westfield. So with that, I just want to thank you for letting us be with you tonight, and appreciate your thoughtful consideration of this investment in what Mitch has shared as critical infrastructure. So thank you. And would take any questions.
Excuse me. Greg, thank you. What we're going to do at this point in time, I think, is, I'm sorry. Thank you, Greg. What we're going to do first is let's have a public hearing.
Okay.
And get some feedback from the folks who attended here with respect to their thoughts. And then afterwards, we're going to share our thoughts with you and probably get some more feedback from you if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That said, I'll open the floor to public comments, public hearing tonight at 7:18, if you will. Kevin, do we have any cards?
We do have one card at the moment on this item, Craig Wood.
Ladies and gentlemen of the council, I'm Craig Wood, live at 167 East 191st Street. I'm here in favor of the Y coming to the Westfield community. My wife and I decided to make a significant contribution towards the construction of the Y because we see it offering opportunities for body, mind, and spirit. Three very important aspects that a number of the organizations around the community offer only one of those. That's a threefold pitch, one organization. Secondly, the Y offers an opportunity for our beloved Grand Park athletes that come in, an opportunity to have a place to worship because so many of the game times overlap our common worship times for the churches in the community. Coach Gilbert, I think you probably understand the value of faith in athletics. Joe Edwards, like myself, you're a patriarch in your church. You know what faith can do for the community. I think it speaks well. Another aspect that it offers, the opportunity for police and fire to do their physical exercise without having to move equipment in and outside the Bay Area that they utilize for their services. They can do that in one common facility and still have child care available, which augments that situation. Also, as it's been mentioned, some fiscal responsibility. The Y can be operated and managed without the city having to pay out fees to do that. And I know several of you are very adamantly interested in fiscal responsibility. Here's your chance. It's a no-brainer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Kevin, do we have any other cards? Okay, is there anyone else who would like to address the council and the YMCA?
Good evening. George Sandburn, I live at 432 North Union, and I also have a business down off Park Street. Been here for 21 years in Westfield, love the community, and try to be as active as I can in the community and my church. Like they've mentioned here tonight, gosh, 1972 started going to a YMCA in Kokomo for a bow and arrow and shooting a .22 gun. Times have changed. But love the Y, love the Y. When my grandpa started business in Kokomo in 1951, he slept at the Y for 1 year in apartments. He used to have apartments above the Y. That's where he was. The Y's been a huge part of our life. I was a YMCA sports director in Muncie right after college for a couple years, and loved it. So I have a lot of experience with the Y. I've been on the board for 20 years. I just had an example. My son lives in Tampa. He has 2 kids, had no place to really take the kids. They wanted to work out. He tried this place and that place. Finally said, Dad, I finally tried the Y. We take the kids there. We go work out. We go swimming on Sundays. It's a great time. So yeah, it sounds like, everything's positive. Yeah, I guess that's the way I'm spinning it. But probably everybody has a Y experience to some degree. And it's just such a great place. As you know, everything's kind of going out that way. And it's a great community center, like they had mentioned. So I just wanted to say I'm for the Y and for this expansion and can't wait. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandberg. Any other comments? Mr. Cook?
Thank you. I'd just like to add that, having a facility like a YMCA in our town also gives us another tool on how we can sell this community. And as you know, I spend a considerable amount of time talking to prospective investors, be it residential, be it commercial. And of course, they're attracted here because we've got things, we have trails, and we have Grand Junction, and we have Grand Park, but they always get around to, that's great, but talk to us about the fabric of your community and how do you take care of people in your community. Talk to me about your nonprofits. Because a lot of these major companies that we look at or are looking at us, they want to get involved in the community. And a YMCA just absolutely fits what we need here. We're extremely blessed in this community, as you all know. Many of our developments have pools and they have workout centers, but not everywhere. And this kind of facility would just really add to the heart, if you will, of this community and our ability to further attract the top corporations that we want to build this community on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Cook. Councilors, comments?
I would like to thank all the steering committee and the people who've been at work this for a long time. We all have great Y stories. I go every summer to a camp in North Carolina at a YMCA facility, and I was one of those poor kids years ago who went to the Y to swim and play basketball and sometimes eat in the summer. So thank you for the work you've done. All our neighboring communities, well-being coalitions and so forth and so on, are all after ways to connect because of what it does for mental health and what it does to decrease violence, both to yourself and to others. That's kind of been like the big statistical light bulb that's come on post-COVID. How do we, in growing communities, maintain connection, so forth and so on. I wanted to brag on Shannon a little bit. a lot of people, view the Y as a gym or a workout facility and a gym, but that's incomplete. The amount of connection activities that Shannon has orchestrated during her time has been fantastic. Everything from movies in a pool and a fake boat or whatever that was that time, and pumpkin painting, and then all kinds of just classes and so forth, and for all kinds of demographics of people, not just one isolated group of people, seniors, all kinds of groups. And so Shannon, you've done a terrific job, and I wanted to say that publicly. So beyond just a gym, the Y is already doing great things in our community, and exceeded my expectations because I was pretty much focused on the building. But thank you so much for the work you've done and up to this point, and I wanted to say that.
I have a few questions. I've got a few questions for you. I hope that's okay. So, I wanted to kind of get a feel for exactly how the Y. I know you like to use the word partner with the community, or the phrase partner with the community. I would like to know what does that look like as far as, we've got obviously several other nonprofits that are doing great things in the community. Can you share a little bit about how the Y will come alongside of those entities, or what that looks like?
Yeah, I think partnerships are just part of our DNA, and what we've learned over the past several years is it's hard to do these things alone. So all of the most recent Ys that we've built, we've partnered with someone. The newest Y, the OrthoIndy Foundation Y, we partnered with the VA Health Clinic. It's the first clinic outside of a VA hospital in a community setting anywhere in the country. So we're used to partnering. So again, looking back at what Shannon's already done by allowing some of the local nonprofit groups to come in and have swim time in the pool, and with Garin Catholic to send their kids in for their swim team training. We know that, to be part of the community means you have to be part of the community, and that's opening up opportunities to work with each other. We feel like we get as much from the partnerships as we can offer, but we do understand we have an amenity, and so we want to use that amenity, the best and highest use that we can for the community. And so they look different in all different parts of the community that we're currently in, and all the Ys that I mentioned, they all look different, but we understand that we have a responsibility to be part of the community, and we look forward to doing that.
So first of all, thank you for that answer. If I can further my question, when it comes to partnering with the community and coming alongside, I don't know a great way to ask this question, so I'm just going to go ahead and lay it out there. I know you have overhead and things that need to be covered, but is this going to be, when we're talking partnerships, is this an opportunity to extend services that are already in place, or is it going to be something that's going to be a costly venture that maybe those entities might not be able to afford?
Good question. I think there is overhead and there are costs associated with it, but I will tell you also, for a lot of our partnerships, we find donors to help underwrite that. So our Live Strong program is a partnership with Ascension St. Vincent. They write a grant to the Y, and that program is 100% free to every cancer survivor. And we identify a cancer survivor as anyone with a diagnosis of cancer. It's not that you've beaten cancer, you get a diagnosis, you're a survivor. So it's 100% free. We have rapid reskilling programs. We partner with Employee Indy, so those certification programs are free for all those young adults that go through those courses. Our Youth in Government program is underwritten by a grant, so the kids who are able to participate and be in a delegation typically don't pay anything for that. So I think it's a little bit of both. There are times that we do charge a service fee or some sort of a program fee for partners to partake in some of our services, but a lot of times we find donors to underwrite that. Our Y raised in 2021 somewhere north of $2.5 million, but we awarded almost $8 million in scholarships. It's just part of our mission. We want to make sure that everyone can be part of the Y that needs to be part of the Y. So if you look at it as a business case, you'd say, why would you give away more money than you raise from donations? And the answer is because we want to be part of the community and help solve issues in the community.
Thank
you. I have a few questions. I was hoping that you could highlight some of the changes from your initial request and what it is now. So this has been around for a while, and I know that you have changed the project. And I was hoping we'd actually have some visuals or something so people could understand what you're intending to build. I know a lot of it's programming for you, but actually the structure is what you need the money for. So I was hoping you actually had that here and could describe what the community would get for that $5 million.
Yeah, so the project, again, this has been an ongoing conversation. If you remember several years ago in your office, many years ago, we started this conversation, and the project was contemplated pre-COVID, a number of years ago, to be somewhere around a $20 million project. And we realized pretty quickly that the fundraising just was not going to support that level of commitment. And the school, when we partnered with the school for the natatorium, the school had a hard cap, a hard limit on what they could spend, and their project was going to exceed that. So our board of directors took an unprecedented step and invested in the infrastructure in that on that corner in terms of parking and stormwater and utilities, all those things, so that project could move ahead, hoping that the Y would be able to come alongside that at some point in the future. But the project, it is a revised scope, so we did have to do some engineering to get it into a price range that we believe we can be successful in fundraising. The gift from the city, the support from the city is the cornerstone. That's the piece that we believe, with successfully partnering with you for that gift, we can finish the rest of the fundraising. There will still be fundraising left to do, but we have a list of donors who have shown interest and have said, when you get closer, come back and talk to us. We have some other donors that we are in the nurturing stage to try to build interest, but we believe we can get across the finish line with the support. But the revised scope still includes gymnasiums. It includes a state-of-the-art wellness center, group exercise studios, childcare rooms, community rooms. What we learned through COVID, it was, no one obviously wanted to go through COVID, but it did give us an opportunity to step back and say, how has the world changed? And how can a Y respond to the new demands that a community might have? So this Y has more community spaces to talk about, Jake, what you were talking about, of just people making connections. Sometimes, young kids, young adults, older adults just need someone to talk to. So it's not a transactional facility. We really do look at it as a transformational facility. It will be a place for everyone to come in, feel like they belong, and feel like they're connected. It'll have about a 5,000 square foot medical office partner that'll be on the front of the building. That was announced by Ascension St. Vincent. They'll be our partner on that site. Yet to be determined the services they'll provide in that space. The facility we have at Fisher's, they provide physical therapy and occupational therapy, but they've not yet decided what they would provide in this space in Westfield. But they're committed to being here, and we know that that'll be one of the services that they provide.
Okay, but what about the rest of the building? What kind of square footage are we talking? And
Yeah, so the building's about as it's contemplated right now, about a 36,000 square foot building just for the Y, an additional 5,000 square feet for the medical office space. So then that would be attached to the 30,000 square foot natatorium. So all in, on that footprint, it's a very sizable development project.
another question, and I don't know if anyone is prepared from the Y to discuss it because it's still hanging out there, from what I understand, is an educational partner, a higher educational partner. Can you update us on that at all?
Yeah, again, not contemplated in the 36,000 square feet, but we've had conversations with potential donors. The county has shown a lot of interest in being able to bring a higher ed partner to this project. And we've had conversations. We have some, probably more than conversations, no formal commitments like contracts or written agreements, but we do have letter of intent from Marion University. And we've also spoken with the folks at Ivy Tech here in Hamilton County. There are probably 2 or 3 other universities that have shown interest. Marion has said that, as we work through this process, they would like to be the convener of the higher ed partners. So they're taking that role right now. What we know is, again, contemplated to be about a 5,000 square foot higher ed space. Depends on how the square footage for the hospital works out, but it would be above the hospital space. And, you know, our higher ed partners then would be able to offer all kinds of different 2-year, 4-year associate's degrees, other kind of certification programs in that space.
Greg, if I could.
Yeah.
Councilor Spoljarek, thank you for the question as well. As we look at education, another key point that the Y has done and proven capable of in Indianapolis is these rapid upskilling programs Greg mentioned earlier. So the idea of being able to take an unemployed or underemployed Westfield resident and being able to run them through a process that does not require higher ed space, just so we're clear on what's possible in the existing 36,000 square feet that Greg mentioned. You know, the CNA programs that he mentioned, the QMA programs that he mentioned would be able to be ran in that space as is. What we're contemplating is really this platform for innovation when it comes to higher ed, whether that's Marion or another university. But that's what, I mean, truly, when we think about how do we make this unique and how do we make it different, how do we take advantage of the critical infrastructure that we talked about before, we think that this space, that first 5,000 square feet of St. Vincent Ascension or Ascension St. Vincent, creates a really unique opportunity above it. And to your point, we have to make sure that we get the right person, the right persons in that space sooner than later. Thanks.
I support the Y, obviously, and I'm really happy that a lot of people do see a lot of value in the Y. The one thing I've been concerned about and said publicly several times is I'm concerned that this could be a gym and swim, primarily, not a lot of other things. And again, because there's no agreements, there's nothing specified. And, you know, from a council perspective, I'm not willing to build a gym. I mean, I just don't see that as a valid use of these funds. But again, I need assurances to be able to consider it, that all these things that are being mentioned are actually going to happen.
Yeah.
A lot of them are ideas or they're happening in other communities, but I'm gonna need assurances that they happen here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
So the Y's been around for 170 years here in greater Indianapolis. And the one thing that our Y is proud of that we've done for 170 years is respond to community needs. And, you know, the fitness activities and the gymnasium and the pool are important to what we do, but it's not all we do. You know, I'm hopeful that by sharing about our chronic disease prevention programming, our rapid reskilling programming, all of our social programming for older adults, the early learning programming that we do, day camps, it truly is designed to meet the needs of the community. So while tonight I can't say exactly each day of the week what will happen, it will mirror what we do in our other facilities, and that's meet the needs of the community.
okay. And council is probably, I think we're going to have to make a decision on this next month, if I'm not mistaken. That is a deadline you have by the end of next month. Is that correct?
Our board has requested that we try to bring this to a point where we know what our direction is going forward. And absent the gift from the city, the support from the city, again, we don't really see a path to victory on this project. So our board has, and our board chair specifically said it would be, you know, it'd be really great if we could come to a decision on how we're going to move forward, if we're going to move forward, so that we can get back to the design process and be ready to break ground as soon as possible.
You know, if it happened this way that we did use ARPA funds, that is over half of our total disbursement. It is a sizable sum. So it's an incredibly important thing. And I know that I've asked for this public comment period to be today, and I'm also requesting that it be on our next council agenda on the 28th, so if anyone else wants to comment. And of course, people can email us as well, but getting that public feedback is important. And I think we all need to hear that from the community to make an educated decision. So, thank you.
Greg, one other point.
Yeah.
You and Mitch both mentioned that you've opened some new Ys across Indiana. Fishers, for example, in the last 20 years. What kind of financial participation? Obviously, these communities see a huge value in having you. What kind of financial commitments have you seen from other cities across Indiana?
Yeah, so in Fishers, it was about a $9.5 million bond issue. That was in 2001, I guess it was. So $9.5 million in 2001, I can't do the math of what the present day value of that is, but a significant investment on the part of the town of Fishers, now the city of Fishers. Peru, the Y that's opening up here in a couple weeks, they did secure ARPA dollars, so there's some ARPA dollars being used for that project that came in. I don't know the total amount. The Y in Greencastle, I believe, is about a $12 million project that the city's building, and then they're going to contract with the Y to operate that facility for 20 years. The Y in Shelbyville that opened recently was a partnership between the city, the county, a community foundation, and the hospital. They all came together to raise the funds for that. I believe that was about an $18 million project, and the Y's operating that, again, at $1 a year for 20 years. So those are just some examples. Lots of different funding mechanisms, some TIF, some bond, lots of different ways to get there.
Greg, I got a couple of questions for you if I could. So with the $5 million ask, if the city steps up and gives you that, how quickly can we start construction? Is that going to be immediate, or are we still a year or two down the road?
Yeah, so as you know, what we'd do, we would be able to immediately go back to the design phase. We had worked with the school when we started the design for the natatorium. We wanted to make sure that it looked like it was supposed to be built together, knowing that it was going to be a phased project. But we would need to go back to start at the design phase, and that's a several months long process. And then we've built in some time for permitting, which usually, it'll take 30, 60, 90 days to get permits, and then would be ready to break ground. Concurrently with the design phase, taking it from design, schematic to DD and CD, we would be finishing up the fundraising. There's still some funds to raise. We believe we can pull those two together simultaneously and be ready to break ground, as soon as all that happens together. Yeah, but with the gift, it would allow us to go right back to design and get the ball rolling.
Perfect. That's all I got the question.
Can I ask a couple more
Sure.
questions? I'm sorry, I don't want to monopolize your time here. I'm going to ask the questions that, kind of the what-if scenario, the scenario that certainly you don't want to see happen. You've partnered with the schools, built a fantastic pool and a great building over there. What happens if you don't get the $5 million? What does that mean? How does that impact the schools? What does that mean on an annual basis? Because if I understand it correctly, the Y is, as part of that agreement, part of that partnership, the Y is maintaining that pool right now, that whole facility. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're managing the facility. Yeah, the school, and certainly I don't want to take thunder away from the school. They manage that part of the project. They contributed, obviously, to build the natatorium. Beautiful facility. I think it's state of the art. We were asked if we would manage that for them. So our day-to-day operations we manage. We work with their swim team coach to make sure the scheduling is, we don't overlap. So the school has first right, obviously, of all the time that they need. They usually take mornings and afternoons, not every morning and every afternoon. We fill in the gaps for the rest. We offer swim lessons, aquafit programs, open swim, lap swim, those kinds of things. If this, we've not had that conversation, to be honest, with the school. If this facility doesn't come to fruition, they're good partners of ours, and we want to make sure that they remain successful. So we would do everything we could to make sure that they remain successful.
I would be curious to find out what that looks like from a financial impact on the school, as well as, I guess, I would want it to address the initial investment that the Y made in that building as well. What does that look like?
Yeah, so the initial investment the Y made, it's part of the development agreement that if for some reason the Y is not constructed, when that corner is developed, the Y would be able to recoup some of the investment that we made in that property.
Okay, thank you.
Greg, can I ask just a couple of questions, again, on the finance, so I understand this. So the initial Y that we had discussed 3-4 years ago, okay, was we were thinking the budget was going to be around $20 million. And we re-engineered that, made it a little bit more accessible to people, got rid of the warm water pool, so we figured the other pool was adequate. What's the budget for the new building?
Yeah, so we had a local firm, a trusted firm that does a lot of work with the school system here locally, that we've worked with on a couple of our projects. We had their team estimate it, and we built in some escalators, knowing that it's not going to be bid today, and prices are increasing every day. And the price that they came back with is somewhere north of $16 million, $16.5 million, somewhere around there.
How much have you raised to date?
We've raised a little over $6 million. With the gift from the city, that would put us at 11 million. And that's not including the 3.5 that the Y invested in that parcel.
Okay, so with the gift from the city, if we were able to meet the whole ask of 5 million, you'd be 11 into it, and then you'd be basically looking for another 5? Is that-
Correct, yeah,
Okay, and you feel pretty confident that you can?
we do.
do that? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could just make one more comment. I think most people know this is the second time you've tried to pull a Y off in Westfield. For $5 million, we get a community center that's going to be world-class. I mean, you look at our sister cities around Hamilton County, really quite frankly around the greater Indianapolis area, they have a community center, whether it's a YMCA, Boys Girls Club. Carmel built their own and staff it. I grew up in a Y like a lot of us here did. I grew up in Kokomo, the same YMCA. I came from a family that didn't have a lot of money, so that was my only option. I went to the Y in Fishers. My office was just down the street, so I used to go there at lunch and work out, and I can tell you, in the evenings and on weekends, that place was packed. I mean, people are using it. It is the community center that you'd want it to be. And I am fearful that if we let the Y for $5 million, we can't do that on our own. We can't staff, we can't operate for $5 million, not even close. If we let that go, strike two, and I doubt we'll see a Y come back anytime soon, at least in my lifetime. And I don't know how else we get to a community center in the future. 'Cause, I mean, if we're not willing to invest $5 million today, it's never gonna get cheaper, I can assure you of that. So just my 2 cents, I've been a supporter of the Y from day one. I was on the steering committee when they first came here. I really, really hope we find a way to get this to the finish line. So.
Any other comments, Counselor?
Greg, sorry.
That's right.
So the 5 million that you would have to raise after our commitment, if you don't, is the answer a lesser Y, but we still go forward? I mean, there's no retraction. Like, if we make the commitment, then we're gonna have a Y no matter what.
You're correct.
Okay, and then if we don't get to the 16 million, we'll at some point value engineer or whatever.
Yeah, I really do feel confident there are a number of avenues that can get us to that number. And I feel very confident we can hit that number in that allotted time.
And for protection for the Y, or for the city, you just need the commitment, correct? You don't have to have a $5 million check from us.
That's correct.
Today.
That's correct. So we would just look for a commitment from the city, and we would be able to structure the agreement in such a way that you certainly felt the city was protected. If that was transfer of funds when the project broke ground, or partial transfer then, a partial transfer during construction, we can certainly work out all those details. We are in no way expecting the transfer of $5 million at the approval of the council.
So, to follow up on that, so if we were to, agree that the $5 million is a great investment, and I just want to be clear, Councilor Gilbert asked a question, and I think I understood that to, hey, if we do that, if we agree to that 5 million, we're getting a Y, it may be even a scaled down version from what we're already seeing. What I would ask is, would the Y consider something where we pledge the $5 million, assuming you get the remaining 5 million?
That's
If
correct.
that remaining 5 million doesn't happen, not provide a further scaled down version of the Y.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I know we have a limited amount of time as far as when we must spend the funds.
Correct.
They have to be committed by a certain time, or earmarked by a certain time, then they have to be spent by a certain time. So we'll have to look at that and make sure that works with your timeline as well for the other $5 million.
Yeah, I believe that, if I remember right, Counselor, it's spent by 2026. I believe.
Obligated by 2024, I believe.
Yeah, obligated by 2024 and then spent by 26. So our timeline lines up perfectly.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Counselors, comments? Mr. Highland, thank you so much.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Frazier, thank you. Mrs. Russell, thank you.
All right.
And we
Thank you, Mayor.
We look forward to getting back to you in a couple weeks.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate your time tonight.
Right, next on our agenda this evening is a special presentation of the Clerk Treasurer's Office. Cindy?
Yeah, as the council and the public is aware, my office has been investigating the use of a third-party remote access software called Beyond Trust on the computers in my office since last year. At the onset of this investigation, I made a commitment that the results, whatever they may be, would be openly shared with the council and the public. As part of the investigation, we retained Veracity, an IT forensic investigation company, to examine the use of this software on the computers in my office. Daniel Smith is a certified computer forensic examiner with Veracity. Mr. Smith has conducted a forensic examination of the computers in my office and has prepared a report with the findings of his investigation. Consistent with the commitment I have made to share the results of this investigation, I've asked Mr. Smith to present his report and his findings to the council and to the public. And Dan?
I have a USB.
Chris? Oh, okay.
There it goes. Good evening, all. My name is Daniel Smith. I'm a digital forensic examiner with Veracity. I was asked to perform a forensic investigation involving the hard drives of all the computers in the Clerk Treasurer's office. In total, there were 7 that were examined. For this examination, I'll get into exactly, I guess, a somewhat exact method of how we perform a digital forensic investigation. And if there's any questions, I can go into more detail. This presentation is kind of light, kind of go through some of the main highlights. And then there's also been a report that's been available as well that has a report of all the findings. And again, we can ask any questions at the end of the presentation if there are any. Just a very short on myself. I'm a certified digital forensic examiner, which is a umbrella certification for both computer forensics as well as mobile forensics, cellular forensics, if you will. I have Security Plus certification for network security, as well as certified voice stress analysis, given presentations in the mobile forensic world for forensic analysis of BlackBerry and also of a TSCM agent. A quick gist of how you begin a forensic investigation is, for this particular case, is to isolate the local hard drives. So this did not include any network mapped drives, only the physical hard drives on the computers. For this to be accomplished, the computers are powered off. The hard drive is manually removed from the computer and then imaged using a write blocker, which is a device that prevents any data from being changed on the hard drive to make sure it's a forensically sound method. So the protection of the hard drive data is done with that write blocker. And the image created, there are several formats. For this particular format, EO1 was used, and that is uploaded into my forensic software for me to be able to begin my forensic analysis. I quickly discovered a user named BGAdmin there were a few different softwares used. Beyond Trust has a suite of software that is used for remote access, and these sessions do not require a handshake with, if you will, with the user of the computers in the Clerk Treasury's office. So this means that it can operate and see everything that's going on that computer, have access to all the files without the user knowing it. Now, this is in contrast to the usual software through the informatics user account. That I noticed a majority of their uses for the remote access was standard IT. So installing updates, drivers, that sort of thing, maintenance of the system, which is what you would expect. The Beyond Trust software seemed to go outside the bounds of that responsibility. For example, in this is showing a remote support login through Beyond Trust. So this is one session. If you look at the dates and times here, it's all on the same date, all within seconds of each other. This is just showing a remote login through, so this is the web portal that would be used to get into the software. So this is where BGAdmin would go to this website, which is a portal to the Beyond Trust software, so they have access to all the utilities that software has, including remote login. This is just showing a login here, status, kind of showing the handshakes, and then the session beginning. So this is a software called PaperCut, which allows remote printer access by, in this case, it was BGAdmin. I do want to stipulate that Beyond Trust and PaperCut can be used as legitimate remote IT support, and that's what its main cause is. The issue here is that it doesn't require the user in Westfield's Clerk Treasury's office to know that it's happening, whereas I saw many uses with informatics that it would be through TeamViewer or other portals that you would use, my apologies, where you would have an access with a remote session where you have a video and you could talk or allow your computer to be operated by the user. I'm sure we've all used those during the pandemic. It's rather legitimate. My understanding was nobody in Westfield Treasury's office knew about this software though. This particular software, PaperCut, allows the monitoring of any activity on the printer in the office that's on that network. That would include any file that was sent to that printer from a computer, any file that was, or document that was scanned or copied. All those are saved on the hard drive in that printer. This software allows access to that. This was majority controlled by BGAdmin. I didn't see a lot of uses with informatics. During my investigation, it appeared as if informatics was more the, like I would say, more legitimate IT uses, where the user would be either be able to see that is happening, they give permission to have an exchange of data, whereas these softwares through the BGAdmin account did not appear to have that. This was an install of PaperCut on, this particular date was April 13th. This would have been either an update EXE, which is an executable application, and this shows as WFS8 is the work computer. On the report, all the users in their workstations, they have a computer name, so it'll be, actually throughout, it appears Westfield, all these computers have names that IT has given them for whatever nomenclature that they decided. So each computer can be identified by that computer name as well as MAC addresses and so forth. Actually, you know, we'll get to the next slide here. So this is Microsoft Xbox gaming overlay. I saw this a lot during my investigation. I wasn't exactly sure how this was why this was being used by BG Admin and what that particular application was used for, until I discovered that by simply enacting this, which is on every Microsoft install, it has this Xbox overlay as included software. This allows you to, it specifically was meant for gamers to be able to record their desktop as they're playing a game to share with YouTube or any other social media network, but it also saves that copy to that computer. This particular instance was being used off-site through a remote session by BG Admin, recording activities on the computers inside the Clerk Treasury's office, which is interesting to say the least. And on this slide, you'll see another overlay, this one being on the same date as PaperCut being used, as well as Beyond Trust. These also correlated with dates that legal counsel was present at the Westfield Clerk Treasury's office with Ms. Gossard.
Who's legal counsel?
I'm sorry?
Who's legal counsel?
The Clerk Treasury's legal counsel. So this is a graph of typical application usage. If you can see here that you have different usernames, BG Admin, WESA Admin, Informatics, and then some of the ladies in the office, staff in the office there, Infar, Dolly, Gossard, just giving an idea of exactly how much of the data usage in a particular set of time that I would see. I wanted to see if this correlated with usage of other software. And on this next slide, you'll see the account usage of Beyond Trust and PaperCut software during the small time frame that I picked on this at a random the time chosen by the software, 198 uses by BG Admin compared with 0 for any of the office staff in the office, which makes sense because they didn't know about the software. And then 2 with Informatics. You would expect for these numbers to correlate somewhat with the previous slide, but obviously it's tilted heavily for BG Admin's use of Beyond Trust and PaperCut, and virtually almost no other uses by anybody else. The disparity of use, again, just in the time frame between March 30th and April 27th, there's 29 calendar days. Only 7 of those were found to have been remotely accessed by Westfield IT, specifically remote users BG Admin and Informatics. Of those 7 days that those computers remotely accessed in the Clerk Treasury's office, 5 of those involved meetings between legal counsel and the Clerk Treasury. What this is saying is it's almost astronomically unlikely that those sessions occurred by coincidence on those particular dates. To be able to have a 71.4% accuracy of remote sessions during legal counsel meetings and only 6.8% on the remaining days in just that 29-day span, I would have trouble myself calculating the odds of that, but it's implausible that it was accidental. Again, this was a very brief presentation on the research that was done, investigation, and open it to any questions anybody may have. Again, the report obviously goes a lot more thorough into the results, but I can try to answer any questions you may have if you have any.
Who is BG Admin?
I am not sure. For me to know that, I would need to have a forensic evaluation of the Westfield IT's system, the computer hard drives, so I can see event logs, who was using it, how often they were having remote sessions, and maybe an understanding of the protocol. Is it within the bounds and protocol of Westfield IT to have these remote access sessions without the knowledge of the Clerk Treasury staff? I I would need more analysis on, because everything that I did, keep in mind, this is all just evidence that was found on the 7 hard drives in the clerk treasurer's office. So this is telling me event logs that anytime there was a connection with other computers or software or programs, it's not telling me the complete picture of the other side of that. So this would be the kind of data that I would want to be looking at from the standpoint of the Westfield IT system.
So of the 7 days you selected, 5 of those days were when council, the treasurer's council was in her office,
Correct.
and they could record her computer.
The possibility is definitely there, because any device that was connected to the network, which were to include the security cameras, which do have audio recording, as well as any recording device on any of the computers, would be access to those as well. So the microphone on the computers was able to be accessed.
So, Mr. Smith, let me ask you, you've given a lot of information. I struggle to understand it all, not being an IT guy, but what is your conclusion here? What are you saying?
The conclusion of this investigation with the data that I have is I don't see any plausible use of the Beyond Trust and papercut software as a plausible, legitimate IT use. It does appear to be used for the sole purpose of looking at the activity of the clerk treasury's office on their computers.
Wow, that is a huge legal accusation you're making.
I'm not making legal accusation. Like I said, there could be 2 parts to the story.
Okay.
With a forensic evaluation from the Westfield IT, there could be more knowledge gained for sure. Matter of fact, it's definite there'd be more knowledge gained. Yeah, all I can do is make a conclusion on the data that I've looked at.
So your conclusion is this is our IT department is spying on the clerk treasurer's office? Is that your conclusion?
From the data that I looked at, correct.
Correct. Spying. Okay. Wow, that is not what I thought we were going to be looking at tonight. I see on the agenda that the clerk treasurer was going to give a report, thinking, okay, it's a financial report. That's a very serious accusation, sir. And
Again, I've made no accusations. I've just
well,
provided a conclusion.
you
of
just
my
made
investigation.
one, yeah. I don't know that my people are prepared right now to answer that kind of accusation without diving
He's
into
not
this.
making an accusation. I mean, I don't know why you keep
Excuse
saying
me,
that.
thank you.
Man,
These computers that are in the clerk's office are owned by whom?
I do not know the answer to that. As far as I understand, this is city property, but that is a
Okay.
assumption on my part.
Okay, and therefore they are under, from a cybersecurity responsibility, it is a responsibility of the city IT people.
A responsibility of what? I'm sorry.
Our IT department is charged with the security of our computer network and city-owned computers. And you are correct, those computers are owned by the city. Did you seek the permission of our IT department to access the city-owned equipment?
I defer that question to legal
No,
counsel. I
it's
don't.
a yes or no. Did you have the permission of our IT department, yes or no?
He had
I
my
don't-
permission.
I don't know if that permission was granted. I was asked to perform a forensic evaluation of those computers. As far
Okay.
as how that was set up,
Okay,
that's beyond my understanding.
interesting. Chris Larson is here. Chris, would you like?
I don't think we're done, and I think people
Okay.
up here would like to ask questions first, Mayor.
That's okay. Chris? Would you, after the council, would you like to respond, or would you like to take time to?
I would love the opportunity to respond, sir.
Okay, please go right ahead.
Okay. I have a question. The paper cut tool, so basically, if I'm on my computer and somebody else is on their computer, that means they could take a picture of, or can they take a picture of my computer, or take a snippet of what I'm working on?
Using the overlay app, that's certainly possible. Within the overlay, there's the option to record the screen as you're seeing it. So if I have a remote session with your computer and I'm seeing your screen on my monitor, I can enact that overlay to record my screen, which is in fact actually the screen of the computer that I have a remote session with. I hope that.
Let me ask another question. Can you turn on a computer's camera and turn on the audio and watch and listen to conversations?
It's certainly possible. It's definitely a possibility with this software. I cannot say that that specific instance happened, just that it had the capability of doing it. It's very difficult to find data that specifically shows a particular device on a particular computer being remotely accessed at a certain session. I think that would be something that could be answered more thoroughly with more data from Westfield IT's system, or perhaps, as I said in the report, there's a lot of questions that I had for the Westfield IT that perhaps could shore up some of these issues. Again, I don't mean to be painted in a box where I'm trying to accuse anybody of anything. I'm just looking at the data and relaying what it's telling me. I have no emotional attachment to this or bias in this case.
So I've got a couple questions. A few slides previous here, there was a graph that said 198 and then 000. There we go. Explain this to me again. Is this 198 accesses to the computers in the office? What is this slide represent?
So these are, it's archives of activity, whether it's a login or an update of an installation of a software. It could be a handshake between the Westfield ITs or BG admins system and the Clerk treasuries when they're logging into that acting particular software, enacting a gaming overlay. So these are it's activity that happened in a remote connection between BG admin's computer and a computer on the Clerk treasuries network.
And is there any way to tell? Okay, so during a remote access, is there any way to tell? You mentioned some software where they could kind of screen capture.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way to determine if they did in fact reference or access documents on any of those computers?
Yes, there are instances which, in the report, there are a couple of documents themselves as far as observing information or observing activities on the local computers and the Clerk treasuries. That would be something on, let's see, like this slide here, for instance. This is by no means the only instance of that. It's just for us to go through all that data would take, I'm sure a lot of people's wives and husbands would be upset at the amount of time it'd take on Valentine's Day. But all this is in the report.
Yes, Scott, so are you asking like this Xbox gaming overlay can take a picture or video, or you know that it did? Is that what we're?
So,
well, from what I understand here, what he said, Jake, is that this can essentially, I mean, I've got teenagers, but they could video the screen itself. What I'm asking is, do you have a way of determining if they accessed documents as well? Not just watch the screen, but also access to documents and information, because that's a whole nother
yeah,
issue.
there was access to documents.
Can information be changed in those documents?
It can be, yes.
So you said that it would be possible to watch through the screen and the cameras and also the audio?
Yes. In my investigation, the evidence for the video capture, screen capture was there. I cannot give a particular instance where a microphone was activated. I can only say that it was possible during this because the software had the capability of doing that during that time.
So this software was on computers, laptops that were taken home. So are you saying it could be accessed in somebody's living room?
Correct.
Bedroom?
Correct, because once they have a ability to access that, you have the MAC address, you have all the naming nomenclatures for that device.
Scary
Are-
stuff, guys.
So
Are you-
internet activity, as long as it has access to the internet, let me be specific. It'd have to have internet access, but it doesn't have to be on Westfield Clerk Treasury's office network there.
Are you currently working with the city's IT department to determine precisely what has been accessed and what was done with that information?
No, I'd be open to that, though.
And you don't know who BG admin is?
I'm not sure who BG admin is.
Can we get Chris, because Chris, I know you got some answers, I can see you back there squirming. Could you help maybe fill in some of these gaps, because I might have some follow-up questions once I hear that. But I always like to hear both sides before I dive head first into this.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Council, for the opportunity. Dan Smith, nice to meet you. It's really unfortunate that I have not had the opportunity to meet with Dan so that we could probably talk about this, not take up all these people's time, because I think that we would come to a couple of conclusions. A lot of this was in a preliminary report that Dan did, and we obviously evaluated that and looked through that report. So I'll answer some of the questions because I know BG admin has been asked a lot. So BG admin is one of our admin accounts. BG is the initials of the employee. It's so we know who's installing what software. I have an admin account, it's CL admin. Almost every person in our department has one. We have specific admin accounts, so we know, one, that those accounts have specific permissions for installing, and we know who's doing it. Back in the day when we were a small city, we used to have one admin account, and that's not really best practices, so we each have one. So BG admin is in charge of doing all of our system installs, all of our system updates, because when we get a computer, it has a bunch of stuff on it, and we wipe it clean, and then we put all new software on it. And actually, the hard drive that you investigated, where I know a lot of this data comes from, was actually a new machine that we had not yet given to the clerk treasurer yet. It was actually at Brian's house. And so what had happened was we had ordered new laptops, and Brian took those home. We were actually still working from home at this time. And Brian would set up laptops all around himself, because when you're doing an install the way we do it, we have an image on a little thumb drive, you plug it in, and it basically wipes the machine away and puts a fresh install on it. That's where the informatics login comes from. Once that's installed, then BG admin, Brian, logs in as his admin thing, continues to do installs. He works on multiple machines at multiple times. That's why he used Beyond Trust, so that he can quickly jump between machines while sitting at one machine. So these machines are actually sitting around him. So he was working on these machines, and I think if we check emails, we got her machine sometime around the 27th. PaperCut, to answer what we use it for, it is used for printing. It's part of our print server. It's how we track all our prints and see how many pages were printed. And we can actually use those to actually check Konica Minolta to make sure that they're charging us the right amount. It can be used for scanning. It's our print server, so it's when you log into a machine, how you get the drivers for a printer, so anybody in the city can print. And then the Xbox gaming, like he said, it comes pre-installed on all Windows devices. Microsoft puts it in there. I believe been working to disable softwares like that because we obviously don't want to encourage gaming. We also, there's like an Xbox store, has a bunch of Xbox apps in it. We've been trying to turn that off as well because unfortunately it gives people access to just download random apps that aren't work-related. So I know that's kind of a lot and I talked really fast because I'm totally nervous, but the key is that there's a horrible miscommunication here where this hard drive was never in the clerk's office possession during this time frame. It was out of the box in Brian's house, and he was working on it.
Do you have documentation showing when the clerk treasurer took control of those computers?
We have emails, I believe, that we can get where Brian let the clerk's office know, hey, I'm going in on Saturday or Sunday to drop off your machines and set them up. And at that time, he also did a refresh, which means a re-image of Carrie's machine, which is why there's a lot of results on Carrie's machine for that day. He went to the office and he did it while he was in the office setting up the other machines.
Why all these new machines?
Well, actually, Cindy had been asking for them for a while, and to be honest, she totally needed them. She was running on some old machines, and typically, we wait until the start of the year, we buy X number of new laptops or computers, and we go through the list, find the oldest one as a, procurement process, and take out the old ones, put in new ones, and she was actually a year behind on hers, to be honest, so.
Is there a reason that they would, tell me again why they would ever use BG admin as opposed to the informatics?
So informatics is just a generic login that is on the image so that the initial operating system can be reinstalled. After that, he uses BG admin so we know who's doing the work. If we had just a generic login, we would have no idea who's doing it. So he has a separate username and password just for that. And that admin account is designed to have specific permissions for that role.
And then the concept, I forget what the percentage was that they were referencing as far as lining up with specific meetings and things like that. That's just coincidental?
I mean, like I said, that machine, he examined a physical hard drive of a computer, and that physical hard drive was not in the office during that time.
Okay.
So when did you do your investigation? What dates?
July 23rd and 26th, I believe.
23rd and 26th, you said?
I believe there was a couple of days there.
Yeah, in July. So that's, he was, huh?
We were in the office.
Yes, and we were back in the office at that time. But
BG admin was on the computers.
So Chris,
well, this is saying that he was there on the 13th and the 8th.
Chris, I want to thank
April.
you for providing some additional information here. It sounds like, just based on the conversation, your willingness to have this conversation now, it sounds like you're more than happy to work with the investigation, kind of, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Dan Smith.
Dan, yes.
Veracity.
There we go. So it sounds like you're more than willing to provide them, work with them and provide them whatever information.
Absolutely, I would have no reason not to.
That's good.
I'm even interested, it says documents were accessed, I'd be interested. I mean, we do access a lot of things. Another thing to keep in mind, during this whole process of installing a new machine, as BG admin is doing here, and installing PaperCut for the printers and installing Beyond Trust so he can access the machine to do this, is he's accessing the physical hard drive on this machine. So as Dan said, there's no network drive access. So all of our files for here at the City of Westfield, on the desktop, on our My Documents, the shared drive, that's actually not saved on the hard drives at all. They're all saved on the network drives that we have backed up and encrypted and protected on our servers. So our hard drives on a computer are literally just for the applications to be installed and run from.
Okay. So it sounds like, and again, just to kind of circle back to what I mentioned a second ago, it sounds like you'll be able to work with Dan. I know when Dan was up here, it sounds kind of scary as far as what it could be as far as access to information.
I agree, and there's
to hear you, it sounds like it's pretty. Everything has an explanation. Everything's good, but there was some missing pieces, if I'm not mistaken, that can kind of put everybody's mind at ease. And with you two working together, it sounds like we can put everybody's mind at ease. Is that correct?
And we also have our own investigation by a third party, if you would like that as well, that we did. I'd love to present that to you guys as well. A different approach, but one that is widely used currently, so.
Can I ask an obvious question? I mean, I have a company and we use Teams and, you know, as a remote login. Why Beyond Trust? I mean, I want to hate that name, gee, many Christmas. I mean, why wouldn't you just use Teams and then call the clerk treasurer to say, hey, I need to look at your computer and help you out with something? Because this whole thing, I mean, why we're here is we've got lawsuits flying around that are absurd, and then we got Beyond Trust software installed on people's computer. I think when everybody reads that.
Yeah, and as I said before, Troy, the Beyond Trust software is on every machine in the city. That is a city machine, and it is.
No, wait a second. She's an elected official, he's an elected official. From that standpoint, they're separate. Do I have Beyond Trust? Do I have access to your systems?
No.
Do I have access to the mayor's?
No.
Okay.
But
Do I
you're
put
also
Beyond
not.
Trust on your computer or the mayor's?
You asked me a question about why Beyond Trust,
I
sir,
know,
and I'm
but
trying
asking
my
you a
best to
question.
just answer that for you.
I'm not saying you're not right, okay? Hey, if you want to talk behind him and talk to me, you can get up to the microphone, pal, all right? Otherwise, keep quiet and let him answer.
I'm trying
Larry,
to.
you understand me? So Chris, I'm not accusing you of anything. I just want to get to the bottom of this and say, why are we not just using, you know, something that's normal that we can all agree on, that the clerk treasurer's okay with, and that the mayor's okay with?
Sure.
And that way we don't even have this whole circus in the public eye.
I agree, and again, this could have been avoided if there was communication allowed to happen between me and Dan, as an example, one example, as well as Teams. You can't do all the things that you need to do or can do with Beyond Trust from an actual remote support tool.
Okay.
It just doesn't have it's designed for meetings and quickly looking at a screen, so.
Okay.
It's a
Well,
simple
I
answer.
think it's good that maybe finally they can work together to figure this thing out. So,
Dan, do you have anything else you want to say? Yeah, come to the.
First, I do look forward to working with Chris and whoever with the Westfield IT. Like I said, my goal is only to find the data, what the data shows, and provide those results.
Sure.
And then it sounds like he said the one hard drive, it may have just been a misspeak on his part. I don't want to speak for him, but the install of, like for instance, the gaming overlay, the paper cuts, and the BG admin, I saw on all the hard drives that I had access to, and there were similar situations across all of those hard drives. Perhaps that's what he was saying when he said BG admins installed on all computers on the in Westfield. I don't know. Just wanted to make sure that was evident, and it wasn't just the one hard drive. And although on this it shows in April, I just wanted to be concise tonight and just do like a 30-day snapshot. It was found for over a couple of years. Any more questions for me?
No, I want to ask a comment. We had a deal brokered here where Chris was going to be with the clerk treasurer. And we had it all sorted out, and then it just got to the point where they couldn't speak without the attorneys. So I'm not speaking for the whole council here, but once it got to, well, we're not going to do it without my attorney, this, we're done paying for that. So we'd love for you guys to get together. Thank you. But in the spirit of cooperation for the city, we're begging you, get it together and come back to us, please. But the whole deal where we could have avoided a lot of this, but I don't blame Cindy, I don't blame Chris, or the city. It just got to the point where no conversation could any longer take place unless the attorneys were in the room, and then their schedules couldn't get together. So then we hired Veracity. But, you know, I'm not as worried about the attorney's schedule, we're worried about the city. So, Chris, hopefully you're willing, and sir, it's nice to meet you tonight. Hopefully you can meet with Chris. Let the IT people figure it out. That's great.
Anything else from me? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay, next.
Can we do this in the next 30 days and put this thing to bed?
Do you have anything else for Chris?
Can we,
Chris, can we do that in a short time frame?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
I'll make myself available, you know, for whatever your time is, and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
thanks, Chris.
Appreciate it, Chris.
Thanks, Dan.
Any other comments, questions?
If you can go to the File Explorer. Mhm. And then you should have, where's your My PC? Yeah. You should already be, yeah, go ahead and Windows Explorer, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, sure, thanks. Looks like something's open here. I'll tell you what, if it corrupts the heart, then it's okay. There you go.
Mayor Cook, before we move on, I'd like to make one last comment, and it's in the hopes that your office and the city council can work together over the next month. We can get the IT's people to work together here. I think part of the issues here have just been caused with the software that's been placed on the computers. Most of us that are have worked in private enterprise for most of our careers. We're not used to the Beyond Trust software. We're used to more of the informatics way of doing things, where the IT department will call us and say, hey, I need to help you and I need access to your computer, so I'm going to take control of it. Or you've got a problem with your system, you call the IT department and say, hey, I'm locked up here, can you help me? And they'll say, just a second, we'll take access to it and we'll help you resolve your problems. But I think that the Beyond Trust software, the client jump software, the paper cut software, the vault options on there, they all kind of speak to a different way of running an IT department, to a way that an IT department can actually look deeper and take control, if you will, over somebody's basic life. The idea that if pushed to the nth degree, as we heard tonight, that you could actually access this in somebody's home is kind of frightening stuff.
Well,
And-
wait. First of all, you're implying that the administration would have any desire whatsoever to spy on somebody, and that is just ludicrous, Mr. Johns. Secondly, if Chris had, as you can tell, Chris is very passionate about what he does. He's one of the best in the business. And for Chris to be accused of what has been alleged tonight, he's much calmer than I would be. And he will be absolutely willing to get through this. And I would tell you that the last hour could probably have been avoided if Chris knew what he was going to be accused of. But we have no notice. Okay?
And I'm
Chris,
sorry to jump
I
in.
think I think you do a good job, and nobody's accused you of anything. And frankly, the public could have been
I
saved.
know it sounds like we're being accused, but guess what? My team is listening to this meeting, okay? And they're humans, and the software you guys are describing, you're taking the features of it, not you guys, I apologize. The features of the software are being slightly twisted into a negative light, and the people who have that authority to do that in the city are my employees, okay? Are the people who have ethical certifications that they can lose if any of it was true. And so to say some of these things that create a fear, it comes back to these employees, which 4 of my employees are taxpayers, live in the city of Westfield, and they care about the city. So I get very passionate about it because it's not just the fact that I think we're doing a good job with our software, with what little we have. It's the fact that the people behind it are kind of caught in the crossfire accidentally.
Right.
So I just felt I needed to say that this evening.
Chris, and it's happened to us too, because we're the ones that have been caught up in all of this. I mean, and with talking to Dan, will you be able to tell me why Sand and Beath's name automatically popped up and an automatic login? And
We can work on that, Cindy, yes.
okay, there's a lot of things that's how this even started.
Chris, I just have one quick comment, sorry, and then I'll let Scott. Scott does a lot better job, he's more diplomatic than me. So, I mean, Chris, I don't think anybody's saying you did anything wrong, but here's where we're at. This city council has witnessed 3 lawsuits, the mayor suing the clerk treasurer. We've witnessed your IT group maybe going in independently without anybody telling you, seizing computers, right? We've witnessed the county sheriff taking cell phones of employees. I mean, we're just trying to figure out what's going on. And frankly, all of this is at the expense of the taxpayer because the mayor wants to sue the clerk treasurer and then she sues him back. I don't even know if there's lawsuits going back and forth. And all that happens is the taxpayer ends up paying a bunch of money. So you're caught in the crosshairs. I get called names. That's part of it. That's what we get for working for the city and a group that's dysfunctional. And we have to get past the dysfunction. And the only way we can do it is to figure it all out. So.
And who exactly is dysfunctional?
Your administration's dysfunctional, we're dysfunctional, this whole process is dysfunctional.
I just wanted to know.
I know,
who
you
was
can threaten me with a
dysfunctional.
lawsuit later, I guess.
I don't know what to add to that. Chris, I was just going to thank you again for your efforts. Thank you again for taking the opportunity to, or taking the time to explain your perspective on things. I think, ironically enough, and Troy, I can't disagree with what you said, and I probably won't do as great a job of summarizing what you said, so I apologize. But essentially, ironically enough, the name is in the software, beyond trust. Trust is the issue. We have none. There is none. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars with attorneys. Let me say that more appropriately. We spent hundreds of thousands of your dollars to determine that we can't seem to get along. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars suing each other for things that were absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd. We can't trust each other. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars for a review that says we have to find a way to be better managed. We have to find a way to get along. We have to find a way to act like adults. We have to find a way, even though we may not like each other, we may have a different opinion on this, may have a different opinion on that, we have to, for the taxpayer, find a way to work it out and move forward. We sat up here, I think in November, I say we, I don't mean the city council, I mean as a collective group. We sat up here, I think it was November, and said, you know what, we're going to move beyond this, we're gonna mark this on our calendar and say it's a new day tomorrow, and we're gonna move forward. I'm not sure that we're doing a great job with that. So I guess what I would like to say again and reemphasize one more time, Chris, thank you for your willingness to jump in. I appreciate the fact that Dan said that he's going to need some more information. Sounds like you're willing to work with him to get those answers for him. And to Troy's point, once and for all, we can put this to bed. So that's it.
That said, let's move on then. Next topic is old business, and we've got one item of old business tonight. Ordinance 21-52, Spring Water PUD. Had a council introduction on November 9th, APC public hearing on December 6th, APC recommendation on February 7th, and it is up for adoption consideration this evening. And I think Justin Moffett from Old Town is going to address the council.
Good evening. Justin Moffett with Old Town Companies. I get the privilege of having the next two items before you tonight. This Spring Water PUD is residential subdivision on South Union Street. I'm going to try to succinctly describe what we've worked on at the APC level. The goal here was to present what we thought was the best use of the subject property and get feedback from adjacent property owners and the APC. We did not want to rush the process, and I think we ended up coming back to the APC 3 different times to get feedback and kind of process our learnings and present updates to the project. Just real high level, this is the site plan that was presented to the council when we did the introduction. I believe it was in November. Originally, we had proposed a mixed residential subdivision with 3 different for sale product types, townhomes. The yellow boxes represented 3-story townhomes. The pink represented rear load garage served single-family homes served by an alley, and the orange represented front-load garage product. This is, as a reminder, the Beauchamp property where there is the existing antiques business that sits back here at the back of the property across Cool Creek on the east side of Cool Creek. As we went through the process, I have a list here of the major changes that happened at the APC level. First and foremost, we heard from some residents and Plan Commission members. There was a desire to see us offer 2-story townhome product instead of 3-story. As our company planned this development, we were considering either, and so when we found that was a preference from the adjacent property owners, it was an easy request to fulfill. This will be represented in the site plan. Turns out there was a lot of concern over a node of townhomes that we had that were in a more wooded area directly across the street from Woodside Drive, and we were directly requested to remove those from the site plan. That was the biggest impact on our density change, other than from the 3-story to 2-story product. So when we first presented this to the council, we were at 113 total units. This final plan here has 90 total units in the development plan. We worked diligently at architectural changes and getting the text right within the PUD ordinance. Councilor Spoljaric had several comments for us that she's had a lot of experience with seeing kind of the good, bad, and ugly of maybe a development plan that was approved and the final product didn't really represent what the council thought they had approved. Our objective is to keep what we think is a good reputation in the community by offering high-quality residential development. So four-sided architecture is important to us and to our clients, so we're going to make sure that the text matched our intentions. So I think we accomplished that diligently working with APC and the planning staff. We changed some of the massing of the townhomes, like I said, 3-story to 2-story, but clarified that we'll have no more than 4 units per building. So there's not long runs, kind of a monolithic row of townhomes to break up the cadence along Union Street. Improve some buffer yards. I'm going to show you that in an image here. We increased the total contiguous natural areas, trying to keep the green spaces connected for the wildlife there, and with elimination of quite a bit of the development area with the removal of some townhomes. You'll see that it keeps a lot of our green space intact. So this, if you'll see where the cursor is, top left, this is an area where we had previously shown a group of townhomes. Now that's just green space. So that was a request of our neighbors at Woodside that they would not see this disturbed. We have the right to put an amenity area in there, maybe a playground, but certainly any viable trees in there are just as important to us as they would be the neighbors. So we will not be removing good trees to put a playground in there. We'll kind of hem it in there. Another sensitive area was the buffer yards for the adjacent properties. The APC really wanted to see this not be in, on private property in the residential lots. They wanted to be in both, in common area. And this is labeled, and it's kind of hard to see on this screen here, but it's labeled as a tree preservation area and additional buffer yard planting. We have made some commitments that we intend to record with our plat to adjacent property owners, just acknowledging that we're going to plant this as described in our PUD, but we're also going to offer some additional plantings on the neighbor's property that we're committing to that lives outside the PUD text. I think it was also addressed at the council level, but we've acquired some property to the south that it doesn't really increase our density, but it improves our ability to provide connectivity to the south. So part of our development plan in buying this property that was owned by the developer of the Lantern Park subdivision to the south enables us to connect this trail all the way down to 161st Street. So we think that's a community benefit in addition to benefiting our own development. I'm going to just real quick cover the product type here. This represents the single-family front-load homes represented by the orange lots. This is our total common area, and again, I wanted to acknowledge here this path, this line here that stretches from 161st Street. So we captured this area specifically to be able to connect the trail, and it did enable us to mitigate some of our fill that we're going to do in this area. So I think we covered that at the initial council meeting. I think Councilor Edwards had some concern about any potential negative impact of fill in the flood areas, and so obviously this will be fully engineered to the satisfaction of your professional engineering staff, but also we'll have to permit this through DNR and Army Corps of Engineers, so it will be in compliance. But the benefit of us picking up this area to the south really was trail connectivity and provide us some additional mitigation area. Another highlight here, just acknowledging that we showed that we'll break the cadence of the residential units along Union Street. That was a big concern of the APC members, so we don't have just a flat wall of residential units along Union Street. Just as a reminder, we talked about this concept of transitional architecture, a mixture between some traditional roof lines and some modern architecture. Still high quality materials that you see on high-end custom subdivisions, similar to what we've built at Maple Ridge or Chatham Hills, or I think the example I've shared with council previously was Mr. and Mrs. Beauchamp approached us specifically because they liked what we had done at a community in Carmel called Jackson's Grant. So this really represents kind of a snapshot of that community. We updated the character images of the townhome product to show, to remove any reference of 3-story units. So we have not custom designed the townhome product yet. We will do that after approval, but that's why I think Councilor Spoljarek and other APC members were very concerned that we have the text right, so that it has to be in substantial compliance with the text and the character images as our baseline. Showing a mixture of more modern roof lines, modern designs, and the previous slide showed more traditional craftsman type architecture. Councilor Johns reminded me that he has a preference towards the craftsman, more traditional, and I would say I share his opinion, but we wanted to get good market feedback on that. The single family product here, this is indicative of what we do with rear load garages on alleys. This is front load single family, and with that I will be quiet and answer questions. I will remind you that we had unanimous favorable approval from the APC, and I think that we worked very hard to address any outstanding concerns. So I'd respectfully request, after answering questions, your support for this ordinance tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
Justin, I'd ask one question. On the north side towards the cemetery there, I'm the sexton of the cemetery, and people consider that a public park. It is not a public park, and they walk their dogs in there, and I'm about to put a sign up that says all dogs must be on a leash, because there's some dogs that are not as friendly as others. And I'd like to see a good buffer put on the north side so they don't come drifting through there and walking their dogs. They'll have to come clear around to the front and announce themselves, or they don't release their dogs to run in there. An unreleased dog is almost fair game anymore, but I've been approached by some dogs that are not so friendly, and I wonder if I ought to start carrying my old 45 down there to convince them to be more friendly. But anyhow, I'd like to see a little better barrier along the north side so that they are not as apt to do that.
I can, sure you'll believe that we have a shared concern about that border, that although it's a quiet neighbor, it's not necessarily a sales tool for us. So we in that area, our presentation of APC was a 6-foot mound planted thick with evergreens along that north line. Sometimes fences make good neighbors, but they require a lot of maintenance, and we decided that the mound and thick planted evergreen row might be a better tool. All of our, we won't have any direct cuts through there. You have to travel over a mound and through pine trees, so the goal would be that you'd really be forced to use the pedestrian paths to go out to Union Street. So internal to the neighborhood, I think it really is designed to discourage flow through there.
If they wish to walk their dogs, I'd like to have them on a leash. I think that's a city ordinance anyhow.
Yep.
But I want them to have one on a leash in there because some dogs are friendly and some dogs are not. And
Justin, will some of those trees on the north end be maintained and stay just above the buffer, just north of the buffer?
Yeah, anything that's viable and in good condition there, we'll look to save. But the reality is, and we have some old aerial images that we shared at the APC level, that a lot of it was just left to go fallow over the last few years. It wasn't like an old growth forest along there. The Beauchamp family kind of just let it go, and so it's a lot of scrub, so not necessarily high quality trees in there. The high quality trees, are the few that exist in the property, are really in this band along this drainage way here, and that's really what we work to preserve here and keep intact. And then this is really going to be mostly replanted. The thicker trees that you see in this aerial really sit on the cemetery property.
Sorry, just a quick question. So, just to follow up to what Jake was asking there, when you put up the mound, is it gonna create a drainage issue and kill off the trees in the cemetery?
Good question. We're responsible to capture our stormwater and not push it onto the adjacent property. So at the toe slope of the mound, we'll have to have a swale that will capture that and direct that water to our storm sewer system.
Okay, I probably asked that before, but.
No, it's a good question.
Justin, will there be a passing blister on the entrance there and right across from Woodside Drive?
Yes, we will have a turn lane here at the entrance. This one is right in, right out only. We didn't want to create another conflict point here. But this area does have a new passing blister.
So is the development paying for the modifications to the Union?
The city has not offered to participate, so we assume that that would be our responsibility, sir.
And they're not.
Okay.
Can I get some clarification? And I pointed this out at Plan Commission. I don't know that it's adequately addressed right now. In your number of units on your concept plan, you lay it out, and it's on the concept plan, but that is not the same as what's in the text. So you, in the text, allow maximum 100 units, but what you're showing us and what would be substantial compliance is 90 units.
So that was a commitment that we acknowledged at the APC level, was that this concept plan, and I think we were also asked to add language that addressed that it would be in substantial compliance with the approved concept plan. And then we noted in that meeting that this key here would represent our total density. So if the council should elect to approve this PUD, we could acknowledge that change in the text as well, if Mr. Todd would allow that.
I mean, personally, I think if that's the case, it should just say the maximum 90 units and not 100. That would make me feel better.
So Justin, I got a quick question. For the alleyways, is that gonna be owned by the HOA, or is that to standard where the city would own and maintain those?
They're built to city right-of-way standard, but, you know, as far as snow removal, that sort of thing, that would be on the Property Owners Association. Most municipalities we've worked with don't.
What about,
snow
I'm
out.
more concerned about the long-term maintenance of those roads.
Yeah, I think this is a conversation that, you're hitting my memory, it's getting late here, but that the goal was that they're built to city standard, and the reason for that is that sometimes, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, HOAs petition for a city to want to take them over. That's not the goal here, but we acknowledge that we would maintain them privately. We'll budget for that within our HOA dues.
Okay.
Justin, while we're on language, the change from 3-story to 2-story, did I read correctly that the building height, though, did not change within the
It
language?
did. We would have gone down from a 45-foot height to a 35-foot.
Was that in the?
It's in the
was that-
PUD text, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
And I just realized we can't do 90 because that would not accommodate for the Beauchamp's place, so it would have to be 91 total permitted in the district. Just so.
I believe there's a separate section, the ordinance, that calls out that as a specific allowed use for that residential structure and the antique, retail antiques facility as an allowed use, separate from this.
Questions, councilors? Do I have a motion to approve ordinance 21-52, the spring water PUD?
I will move to approve ordinance 2152 with the following change, that section 5.5 should read that the maximum dwellings permitted in the real estate shall not exceed 91.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made by Cindy Spojeric, seconded by Scott Willis. Cindy Gasser, would you call the roll, please?
Just a second, who will get me those amendments? Or, Kevin, will you be redoing that ordinance, or? Yes. Okay, thank you. All right, okay. Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeric.
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Mike Johns.
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Troy Patton.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Justin, thank you for your efforts on this. New business. First item under new business tonight, Resolution 22-102, approving a developmental agreement for certain property in the city. This is in fact the Union Square Garage. This resolution deals with the issuance of a $12,250,000 bond, which will fund the parking garage at the Union Square building. And it's being funded, I guess, through tax increment and backed by lit revenues. And Jeremy Lawler is going to present this to us. Jeremy.
Well, I thank you, councilors. For the record, Jeremy Lawler, Director of Public Works. I was going to introduce it, but you did a very fine job doing that. So just wanted to let you know that Catherine Finello is on the line. She's not here present today, but she did dial in, which is our legal counsel. And Mr. Moffett from Old Town Companies is going to give you an update on where it's at.
Good
All right,
evening.
can everyone, oh, go ahead.
Catherine, would you like to introduce this further?
Sure. Although that was a great introduction already by the Councilor Johns. Again, my name is Catherine Finello, public finance attorney with the law firm of Dinsmore and Scholl. This goes back to a term sheet that was introduced and approved by the council in March of 2021, outlining the proposed terms and conditions of the development being proposed by Justin Moffett through Old Town. in the Union Square tax increment area. And just as a reminder, that tax increment area was created in 2019 and was expanded with the approval of the council in 2021. That project, as Justin will describe, consists of apartments, commercial and retail space, and the related parking garage. And as mentioned, the parking garage would be funded through the issuance of economic development revenue bonds payable from the tax increment revenue generated from those various projects. And to the extent that tax increment revenue is not sufficient, the local income tax. So the proposed development agreement that you have before you further outlines the terms and conditions and provides more definitive terms and conditions. And if that development agreement is approved by the council and the redevelopment commission, we would be back before you shortly with the bond approval document. So there's a couple more steps left after this, but this would get us started. And with that, I'll let Justin talk about the project, and I'm happy to answer any follow-up questions if needed.
Great, thank you, Catherine. Again, Justin Moffett with Old Town Companies. The goal tonight was not to talk about the details of the Union Square project specifically. We've been in front of the council and the APC, I think a total of 12 times over the last 2.5 years discussing this project. No material facts have changed about the development plan. There's a phase 1 of the project due north of the Grand Junction Plaza area that comprises a multifamily structure. Internal to that multifamily structure is a public parking garage. Adjacent to that, there's what we're calling a food hall, food and beverage facility, and then at the corner of State Road 32 and Union Street, we have proposed a Class A office building. As you'll probably all remember, we were in front of the council middle of last year to expand the allocation area and seek zoning approval to do a phase 2 of the Union Square development area. The phase 2 is the property directly east of Grand Junction Plaza and north of the Midland Trail. So in combined between the two projects, we'll have a total of around 300 multifamily units. In the phase 2 along Union Street facing Grand Junction Plaza, we would have approximately 10,000 square feet of main level retail space. The goal is to activate the streetscape facing the park and have retail there. Okay, there we go. The goal is to move forward with that phase approximately 18 to 24 months or so after we commence construction on phase 1, which is the area, again, just north of Grand Junction Plaza. I think we received unanimous support of our term sheet at the council March of last year. That outlined the terms by which the administration was free to start negotiating what we call development agreement. We've taken quite a while to do that and get it back in front of you, but part of that was trying to figure out timing of the State Road 32 project that had some impact on some of our design decisions, figuring out what the final right-of-way would be. We knew that we'd have some right-of-way that would impact our development area, so wanted to gain some understanding around that. Ultimately, the document before you just adds clarity's teeth around, who's responsible for what between the two parties, between the city and the private development. So there's not, to my knowledge, any new terms or concepts introduced that we didn't talk about previously when we did the term sheet. It just discusses how we'll interact with the building corp and management of the garage facility, what responsibilities we have to perform and when we have to perform those, and then also how we go about things like change orders, that we would need the city's permission to materially alter the development plan or lessen the quality of anything, or any change order that would impact the public parking facilities. We would have to go seek approval from the city for that. So it really just takes essentially a letter of intent and turns it into a contract, and that's really what we're here tonight to seek permission on. Timing is pretty specific at this point. We have a goal of getting this parking garage open and available to the public as soon as possible to the benefit of Grand Junction Plaza. But we also are trying to marry our timing with the State Road 32 construction so that we're opening our doors about the time that State Road 32 is wrapping up in 2024. We also, I think I might have mentioned this, I don't know at the council level, but at APC certainly, when we discussed it, we have fully leased the retail spaces adjacent to the park. There's high demand for businesses that want to be part of the renaissance of downtown Westfield, and we have a lot of interest in the Class A office building. What we have found in other municipal partnerships we have is that getting daytime jobs into the neighborhood is a good thing for business, good thing for restaurants, so they're viable during the daytime. We know that Park Street's very active evenings and weekends, but they could use a little more activity in the lunch hour. And so our hope is that, you know, getting this project moved along will bring some new Class A office jobs to the neighborhood as well. So our goal is to start construction by July of this year. And so really, again, this is just another step in the process, and we'll be back in front of you again with additional information in the future. But glad to answer any questions tonight. I'm not the bond expert. Paid professionals are on the line here, but just want to acknowledge that we continue to remain excited about this project and anxiously anticipating getting things started. As a company, we have closed on the purchase of all this property, including the city-owned property, so we are entitled on it now. So, you know, our feet's to the fire now. We really feel the pressure of getting this going. So hope to continue the good work we've started together, and looking forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. Thank you. I have a question, Manny, not to put you on the spot. So, I'm good with everything, okay? But, so I'm just trying to understand. So the tax increment, like on page 6 of the agreement down below, I'll wait till you get there. Yeah, keep going.
Go ahead.
Okay, so, sorry. So the tax increment, you know, so it reads, shall mean all property tax proceeds attributable to the assessed valuation of real property in the allocation area in excess of the assessed valuation described, blah, blah, blah. Such statutory provisions exist on the date of the issuance bonds, less any fees, Westfield redevelopment, of course, to pay trustee fees under the indenture and all other reasonable fees paid in connection with the administration and monitoring of such property tax proceeds. So I guess this is my question. I know that's long, but when does that stop? When does that lit and the tax proceeds stop going to the redevelopment corporation? Because it's actually not spelled out in the agreement. And again, Justin, I mean, I'm good with everything, so I'm not.
And Catherine's on the phone. She's been on this project a lot longer than she's
okay.
been on it. But what happens is there's a sunset. That's a statutory overlay on the tax increment.
Is that a state thing?
Mm-hmm. There's a state statute that sunset it from the date of 25 years from the date of the issuance of the bonds. And Catherine can speak to how that works and what that is. That's specific to this project. But that's why you're not going to see a kind of sunset clause in here.
Okay.
Because there's a state statutory overlay.
Okay, that's what I asked Mike that, because I said, well, I don't understand how, where's the clause that says it wraps up?
Right. Yeah, and Catherine, please add anything you need.
Right, well, that was a perfect description, and also to add to that, when we come forth with the bond approval documents, you will see a maximum term, which is expected to be 25 years. Jim Treat has prepared the estimates, and we'll talk more about the finance part of it, but you'll see those terms in the bond approval documents.
Yeah, good point. Thanks.
So do the bonds typically coincide with the sunset?
Sometimes they're
typically.
less, but typically they do. Yeah.
Okay.
You want to maximize the sunset.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're 20, 15, depending on the project.
Okay.
For this size project, they're going to be
25.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And the goal
That's
is
correct.
that, you know, we underproject a little, have some margin, and then overperform, and they expire early.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah, good question.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? This has its own allocation area. Why wouldn't the default, if that fails, be the broader TIF area? Why is it lit? And what impact is that going to have for lit? Because we also have other things backed by lit. So where are we?
Oh, sorry, Cindy.
Go
Good
ahead.
question.
Go ahead, Catherine.
And Jim Treat can speak to more of the finance terms when we get to that process. But in short, the lit was added because these bonds will actually be sold, on the public market. They're not developer purchase bonds. So the lit backup will give them more strength and a better credit rating. And that's how I understand it from Jim. And again, he can speak more to the finances at that time. But that's the general thought there. Now, whether other revenues could be used, Jim can certainly look at that. And we could certainly insert terms like that. But I think that's probably more of a discussion to get Jim Treat involved in.
It's just something when we start looking at the bigger picture, anytime we're backing something with lit, that's then money we can't use to back something else. I mean, you have a max. So it's a concern.
Well, Jim Treat has done this for us forever and understands what the boundaries of our lit commitments are, and he would, I'm sure if he were here, he would tell you he's very comfortable with using that as the backup, and I would guess it's because that gives us the best purchase on our bonds from an interest rate standpoint.
But it does, I mean, it's all of our risk then. I mean, it is. With our
It's all of our what?
It's all of our risk then.
Yeah, there's risk. Yeah, there's risk.
So when we went through the term sheet process last year, this was discussion that happened. And ultimately, as we introduced this concept, it was that in the previous iterations of the project, we had the right to do a developer bond, and we're not obligated to provide any public parking. And then we talked about the parking needs. In addition to providing a parking garage facility in this phase 1 project, we'll have a significant amount of surface parking available immediately east of the park during the construction of the parking garage that will be publicly available. So the idea here was that we're now creating a public asset, and to make the dollars go further, when we attach the lit component, again, as Mayor said, interest rate goes down, net proceeds go up, we have enough funds to build a larger public parking facility. So the lit's simply being used as kind of a credit enhancement tool to make the dollars go further. But the primary source of payment is going to be the TIF, the new tax increment generated by the project. And as you can see in some of the modeling that O.W. Crow and Jim Treat provided the city, we're not maxing out the projected proceeds. And so theoretically, we could bond, I'm going to misstate the exact percentage, we could bond a percentage more, and many other municipalities adjacent to you would totally max out everything available. Westfield's taken more of a conservative approach and said, hey, we're not going to go to the limit, because ideally, we're going to retire these bonds early and redirect those funds to other public benefit.
Hey, Cindy, what if, and I'm just talking out loud, what if Jim put together, because I don't think we've seen a schedule lately of what we've obligated lit for, and with the expectations from this, I mean, so just to share with everybody. Is that good?
I mean, we do need to understand that. So.
I mean,
As part of the issuance process down the line? Or?
yeah, or just as a knowledge, from a knowledge framework for the council. Because it's a good question. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
And one more. So this is going to be, and the documents only say approximately 300 spaces. And it's not an exact thing. Now, your apartments are 180 units.
Mm-hmm.
And so at least every apartment has a car in this day and age, if not 2 people living there in 2 cars. Plus, you're going to have the restaurant and the office. So how on earth is there going to be any public parking
Great
left?
question. So I've shared this, and I'm glad to bring it back for council. We did a kind of a parking matrix of the different uses by hour of day. And so in addition to the garage, within phase 1, I'll bring a chart back for you here, but we have surface spaces that don't exist today that we're building in addition to the parking garage. So we're doing new on-street spaces, 90-degree spaces on Jersey that actually eat into our property, so we're not taking up existing city right away to do that, and we have a surface lot. And so in total, I'm going to say we have 360, 380 spaces in phase 1. that don't exist today. And so if you look at the uses by hour, we're not 100% occupied at any given time by the multifamily. And so our chart shows that we have, at any given time of day, approximately 100 available spaces that don't exist today that are available to the public. So whenever we're maxed out within our development, we still have about 100 public spaces available. That's in addition to the new spaces we'd be providing in the surface lot east of Grand Junction Plaza in the surface park lot there.
So just on the parking, it says a minimum of 30%. So what's that look like? No one can park in those spots because they're reserved for apartment dwellers?
Can you point to that portion of the text, sir, as far as the page number? I believe there was a provision that has a maximum of 30% that can be privately reserved for fee by the residents of the development. So if we build a 300-car garage, that we could allow residents to reserve up to 30% of them, so approximately 90 spaces, to pay a fee. This was a strategy to provide obviously a benefit to the residents. Previously, we were going to offer 0 public parking. Now we're offering public parking. But it creates a source of revenue to pay for the OpEx of the garage. That was a big concern when we had this discussion last year was, and rightfully so, how are we going to pay to maintain this if it's a city asset? And so the goal was to create a source of revenue that would go straight to the building corp to cover the monthly OpEx of the garage facility.
So that's the process for leasing of parking spaces in the garage, which is under the garage operating agreement. So the city operates the garage. You're saying of that 30%, you're calling that a maximum, and that money goes back to the city to pay for the operations.
Yes, sir.
Because it mentioned minimums and maximums. I thought the minimum was 30%. Am I wrong?
Page 28, Councilman, I think, maybe, under D. No event shall there be fewer than 30% of the total available parking spaces designated for the tenants or occupants.
Yep, you're correct, sir, that says that. That was our requirement, so when we were redlining back and forth, we said that we needed the ability to do that, but we understood from the city side that it would be the maximum allowed would be that. So the building corp, meaning the city appointed officials can say, great, no, we provided 30%, no more, no less.
And I'll say this is a similar model to what Fisher's and Carmel's doing in their downtown areas, and I'll tell you, it works. It's rare that especially in Fisher's, if I'm hitting a restaurant or going to one of the businesses there in their town square area, it's rare that you can't find a parking spot. And they do a similar model there for their apartments.
I would like to thank Justin. I went through that parking study with you, if you remember. We spent about an hour or so going through it, and I've got a copy of it here if any of the councilors would like to see it. But yeah, I think it will satisfy the needs of the city, basically, on if the estimates and the forecast is correct there. So.
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution.
I do have one other question on it. One other question. Okay.
I second that.
Okay. And I'm great with the parking garage. I'm great with the $12,250,000. Okay, we need a parking garage. This is going to be fantastic. Timing is spot on. Okay. My concern is the Cherry Street Bridge. All right. And we talked a little bit about this in the pre-council meeting. I just want to make sure that by signing this, we are not committing ourselves necessarily to building the Cherry Street Bridge without an understanding of what the cost of that bridge is going to be.
Good point.
All right, I mean, 12 million is one thing, but is that bridge going to be $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $4 million?
Sure.
And I think, Jeremy, could you address that with us?
Yeah, I can address it as best I can at this preliminary stage. So everything you see on the building there, or on the screen there, is also subject to impact fees. We have done very, very preliminary estimates for the cost of the replacement of the Cherry Street Bridge. We believe that the fees generated plus the dollars that we acquired when Old Town purchased our properties in the block. Those two put together, and hopefully a partnership with the county that we'll be exploring here very soon will cover the cost of the bridge. Otherwise, it would be an impact fee project for the general area. We haven't calculated any of the other developments that are happening right now, but we're confident that we can cover the cost of it with the generation of the project that is outside of what we're committing in the 12.25.
Okay, all right. All right, so the bridge then is part of this agreement. We're committing to it.
It is noted in the, yes, it is noted that the bridge needs to be replaced.
Okay. And I guess I'm gonna have to really defer to you on this one. My biggest concern is the impact fees, because I know that our impact fees from this year, they pretty much go away next year at this time with the completion of State Road, or the beginning of State Road 32.
The dollars that we reserved up to the start, yes.
So where we're sitting on, $8.5, $9 million today, next year at this time, we're gonna be sitting on about maybe $2 million of impact fees.
That is possible.
And so from a timing standpoint on the bridge, we know that the bridge is going to need to be constructed 2 years down the road.
Correct.
So what we're saying is 2 years, basically 3 years from now, from today's date, we should have enough in impact fees to cover the bridge.
To the best of my ability to estimate, yes.
And/or is this something that we should consider as an infrastructure improvement with our ARAP funds?
It's certainly an option and eligible for that. You may have a timing issue to have those dollars allocated by the end of 2024, because there is a pretty robust permitting process with this bridge project. So we, the city, me and my staff, have not really officially kicked this project off, because it's not really a project until you guys agree to the development agreement. When it is, it becomes a capital project. It goes into our process. We get a consultant. We start working with the county, and 2 years from now, we'll be ready to build it.
My only concern is that as soon as we approve this tonight, you get with your staff and you start generating an estimate so we can be ready.
Yeah,
If that makes
absolutely.
sense.
We've already started those conversations, without a doubt. And like I said, there's lots of variables in there. We will need to look at that project not just from a bridge and stormwater project. We need to look at pedestrian facilities, figuring out, because we need pedestrian connectivity along Cherry Street. Cherry Street's already in the project that I presented to ARPA for that downtown drainage work and revitalization of Union and College and Roosevelt and Cherry Street. So it's part of a big moving target. This commitment to us doing that puts a timeline on us, which will trigger our next steps.
All right, thank you. All right, that's it. Do I have a motion?
I second that motion.
All right. I guess a motion made by Mike Johns and seconded by Scott Willis. Cindy, would you call the roll, please?
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Mike Johns.
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeri.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Justin. Next item under new business is ordinance 22-01, amending the Westfield Fire Department's fire prevention, ordinance 2157. So this has a council introduction this evening. It's up for adoption consideration this evening, and Chief Gaylor is going to explain to us one more time what this is about.
Yes, Rob Gaylor, Westfield Fire Department. This ordinance is brought to you this evening. There was some verbiage on the first page when we sent it into the state that they felt like they were left out. They asked to rewrite and add upon approval and include some verbiage by Indiana Building Commission. So we changed some language on the first page, and that's what we're doing, reintroducing that ordinance for the final time to seek your approval for some verbiage change on the first page to include the state of Indiana.
Thank you, Chief. Counselors, any questions? Can I ask for a motion to approve ordinance 22-01?
This is an ordinance, so do we need to do a?
Councilman, yeah, good, I'm just about, you beat me to it, that's right.
Go ahead.
Two-step.
Usually it's two-step, but
Yeah, so if we could do motion to suspend the rules, and then motion approved.
all right.
Motion to suspend the rules on ordinance 22-01.
Second.
Motion made by Troy Patton, seconded by Scott Willis. Cindy, would you call the roll, please?
Cindy Spalgeric,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Joe Edwards.
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Scott Fry. Scott Fry, oh, where
Yeah,
did
you gotta go to the bathroom.
Oh.
He's in the middle. Okay, now can I have?
That's still unanimous.
It's unanimous. It's unanimous. Can
I
I
make
have
a motion that we approve ordinance 20-01, amending the Westfield Fire Department's fire prevention ordinance.
Second.
Motion made by Jake Gilbert, seconded by Troy Patton. Cindy, call the roll, please.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Scott Fry. Oh, I forgot he wasn't here. Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeric,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Troy Patton.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Unanimous. The next item on our agenda this evening is ordinance 22-03, voluntary annexation, the shared property group phase 1. This has a council introduction this evening. We will have a public hearing this evening also. It's up for adoption consideration on March 14th. As I understand it, this is the annexation of property on the northwest corner of State Road 38 and State Road 31. And I believe Kevin Pam Howard is going to explain what that's about.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Pam Howard with the City of Westfield Community Development Department. Before you this evening, as you said, we have a 100% voluntary annexation of approximately 63.5 acres located at the northwest corner of US 31 and State Road 38. This item was properly noticed for a public hearing tonight and will be eligible for adoption at your March meeting. The fiscal plan for this project will be presented at that time. We do have the petitioners here. They do not plan to present, but are available for questions, as am I, if you have any of the department. Thank you.
Okay. This ordinance requires a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing at 9:27. Kevin, do we have any cards?
We have one card. Marla Ayler.
Hey, Marla.
Good evening, councilors. Marla Ayler, 1602 East 203rd Street. Council President Johns has made repeated requests for administration and planning staff to provide a map of all industrial parks within Westfield in order for the council to see where commercial areas are located. Additionally, he requested a report detailing a percentage of each industrial park that is currently occupied and what percentage of these parks are still available to builders. He was told this information could be misleading and was too sensitive to share with the public. Furthermore, he stated he has not received either of these reports and that he would be hard-pressed to approve any new industrial park, and certainly not one that would conflict with the comprehensive plan, according to a recent email he sent me. With that said, and after making a public document request, I obtained a copy of the application for annexation on this project. In my opinion, this annexation must be looked at in both phases, rather than the short-sighted and compartmentalized Phase 1 view only, linked in tonight's agenda. Number one, a simple Google search of Sheer Property Group indicates that they specialize in providing tenants with high-quality industrial assets. And number two, because this annexation has been brought to the council in an atypical fashion, it sets a unique and dangerous precedent. Historically, in Westfield, PUDs have been brought forth first, and upon approval, annexation is then granted by request. Sorry, I lost my place. So this annexation and annexation generally is about planning for the future. Tonight's introduction causes me to question exactly how long most of you had had to contemplate this very serious venture. My personal and emotional connections to both Westfield and Sheridan have given rise to my concerns regarding this annexation ordinance. The primary issue involves a balance between the rights of property owners in Adams Township, which is the parcel to the north of the one you're being shown, and the needs of our own municipality, causing me to question whether the council and the city of Westfield want to be perceived as a bully on the block. While municipal boundaries sometimes need to be changed, the legislative body essentially has the freedom to annex land unilaterally because Indiana annexation law includes what is known as a presumption in favor of municipal government. The legislative body can, following this public hearing, either pass or not pass the ordinance next month. Cases like this one, however, involve petitions by developers who seek annexation in exchange of extension of utilities and other services like police, water, and tax abatement and sewer. The best interpretation is that municipalities do not initiate the majority of these cases for a reason. The fundamental political issue of the right to self-determination is the right to choose the government under one which lives and is governed. Under the wrong circumstances, it can be a very explosive political issue. While many municipalities use this criterion to annex rural land, this creates the perception of a land grab on Westfield's part, despite it only being 140 acres to the north of our city. Our comprehensive plan is very clear and has never contemplated annexing land beyond our own township's borders. This one does. Similarly, it was Adams Township that conveyed their desire for industrial development to occur on 31 in the corridor in the Hamilton County Comprehensive Plan, not Westfield. If you don't want an industrial park as the northern gateway to Westfield, then you need to ask a developer to come back with a PUD before considering the annexation for a full explanation of his expectations, his or her. If, on the other hand, the Westfield City Council chooses to proceed with the annexation, then it is also by law its obligation to provide the needed and necessary services which currently fall under the purview of the county. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the town of Sheridan, who employs the former chief of staff for the mayor, as a consultant for the Sheridan Economic Development Commission, and he advised them in January 2020 when they asked, they were concerned about encroachment. He said that there are things that can be done to prevent encroaching on Adams Township in the form of a cooperative agreement between the town and the township, the town of Sheridan and Adams Township, which seemed to allay their fears at that time. In closing, should this council choose to proceed with the annexation in the near future, it is my opinion that you effectively admit that you have no problem becoming the bully on the block. Respectfully, I request that you reach out to the Adams Township trustee, the Sheridan Town Council, the Hamilton County Commissioners, and perhaps take time to look at the Hamilton County Comprehensive Plan before making a decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Marla. Kevin, do we have any other cards?
We do not.
Okay. Then I'll close the public meeting at 9:33. Counselors? Questions?
This ordinance says that we adopted the fiscal plan for the annexation area. We didn't, and I'm guessing that was forthcoming, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, at the time you approved the ordinance, you would have approved the fiscal plan. The ordinance is not up for adoption this evening.
Right, but we don't have the fiscal plan in front of us.
Correct. Correct, and all the annexation ordinances you see when you see them for public hearing say that the fiscal plan was adopted because at the time you adopt the annexation ordinance, you will have adopted the fiscal plan.
Thank you, Pam. This just seems backward to me. We almost always get a PUD that comes through, and we move it along that way. My concern with this right now is we have never contemplated as a community growing beyond our township. And this sets that tone for phase 2 of this does go into a different township. That's no longer Westfield, Washington Township. That's a bigger conversation, I guess, in my head, and something I need to think about.
And my concern, I share the same concern, but in addition, the way it's being presented does give me some heartburn. I mean, typically it would be a PUD, but this is coming to us as an annexation, but it's just the annexation of the land currently in Washington Township. And although Cindy and you and I have been made aware of the additional plans to annex into Adams, that information has not been provided to the other 5 council members here this evening. And that gives me concern that we'd be voting on something which you're not aware that what phase 2 is. And it's their intent, if you scroll through, I've added it to your screen here this evening. If you scroll through, it's their intent that annexation is going to be brought forward to us in 2 months. So we're not looking 2 years or a year down the road. We're looking for them to be coming before us to annex land in Adams Township in April of this year. So it just strikes me as strange the way this is being presented to us.
From a geography standpoint, I can explain a little bit of that. To annex into a city, the boundary of the area being annexed has to be 1/8 of the boundary has to be contiguous with city limits. So that is why most annexations you see do come in phases like this. So that's the reasoning for the phases from that aspect.
So there's just something else that weighs on me is we know that the intention is to put a business park here. And again, our comprehensive plan, I know I keep going back to this, contemplates the one area that we have. And it doesn't contemplate the majority of our northern boundary being business park. So again, it's a departure. I'm not saying that it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying that's never been something this community has talked about or agreed to. So it gives me concern.
I guess I would just mirror Cindy's comments there. To annex this land, I would certainly like to see it done more the traditional way, with the PUD coming first, to give the neighbors in the surrounding area a chance to remonstrate and give us their thoughts at a public hearing as to whether in fact they would even entertain a change in the comprehensive plan and putting a business park into what's currently zoned as primarily agricultural, residential type area. I don't know that we're doing anybody a service by considering the annexation prior to looking at the planned use of the land. Any other comments or concerns? We can certainly just table this for this evening. It's up for adoption consideration a month from today.
Maybe next time when Matt gets back or something, we can talk about some of these things, right? I mean, I know he's not here.
Yeah, Eric Douth at Churchill and Antrim. I'm here on behalf of the petitioner. My partner, Matt Skelton, is the lead attorney on this. But as an introduction, tonight's not about talking specifically about the use, nor is there a vote. Certainly between now and March 14th, that would be the intent, is to make sure we've answered all of your questions and make sure any questions you've got are answered to your satisfaction. So we'll certainly get those meetings scheduled over the course of the next 30 days with you.
Okay, thank you. That'll work. All right. Interesting. Moving on, our next item of new business, ordinance 22-05, Woods Robinson Briggs PUD, Amendment 1, Harvest Trail at Westfield. And Dane Crabtree, I think, is going to be talk about this, and I think it has to do with modifying buffers. Is that correct, Dane?
Yeah, Dane's not on the call this evening, but we do have the petitioner here, and they plan to make a presentation this evening.
I'm Ed Freeman. I'm the land acquisition manager for David Weekly Homes, 9310 North Meridian in Indianapolis. First of all, thank you, President Johns, council members, and Mayor Cook for allowing us to speak tonight and to submit this request. We're submitting it on behalf of C&D Woods Robinson LLC, which I want to point out is a subsidiary of David Weekly Homes. So that's who the petitioner is. We're submitting a request for a text modification on the ordinance 2110, the Woods Robinson Briggs PUD, which the council approved back in March of 2021. The modifications that we are seeking in this PUD amendment are for the overall legal description and acreage. We would like to replace the Exhibit A with the one included herein to update the legal description and total acreage based on the latest description by survey. This description is included with the package or the ordinance that you all have. We would also request changes to the table contained in Section 8.3, small lot, single-family north district. Those lots, when approved, were for 60-foot lots. Pretty much everything north of what the mounding is. We plan to build homes on 65-foot and 90-foot lots. So we are requesting that the minimum building setback front is reduced from 25 to 20 feet, and the minimum building setback for the rear is reduced from 25 to 20. The 5-foot front and rear setback reductions will allow C&D and/or David Weekly Homes to fit larger homes that have been extremely popular in our other communities, including the lakes at Shady Nook here in Westfield. The third request is adding a buffer yard amendment, which is before you right on the board there. We would like to add the overall buffer yard amendment based on the attached that you see before you. We're requesting that no buffer yards be required along or adjacent to the Monon Trail due to the tree-lined Monon Trail already providing a significant buffer. We have spoken to the homeowner on the northern part of that. The southern part of the Monon Trail is along an institutional use, the school, which a buffer is not required, and then the northern part up to where it turns purple, that property owner does not object and is supporting this. In addition, we are also requesting that the buffer between the PUD residential uses and the adjacent agricultural use be a 10-foot wide with plantings as noted on the Exhibit C. There's a second exhibit, Kevin, so that, and what's defined within there is those 3 larger trees and the other smaller trees and other landscaping items. Finally, we are requesting that no buffer be required between the PUD's commercial uses and adjacent agricultural land to the west. In all likelihood, that future use of that agricultural ground will also be commercial. So with that, we respectfully request approval of these amendments to Ordinance 2110, Woods Robinson Briggs PUD, Look forward to going to the Plan Commission meeting on March 7th, and then to be back before you in April. So if you have any questions, I hope I can answer them, and Michael Lukey, our division president, is also here.
Any questions, Councilor?
Just a quick question. So, you said to build larger homes, but if you're talking about 5 foot on either side, I mean, how much bigger of a home can you build? I mean, across the spectrum, or are you gonna reduce the number of lot sizes? Reduce the number of lots?
At this moment, the larger home section, the 60-foot section, allows 175 total homes, and we are proposing 127.
Okay.
So we have reduced it. And then sheerly from the, there's 3 homes in our 65-foot collection that are just deeper because they're 1-story or ranches, and we just need some more depth on those.
Okay, but no more numbers?
No, sir.
Okay. And then, sorry, one other question. Along the Monon Trail, I mean, why the additional buffer there? I mean, I would think you'd want more of a buffer along the Monon Trail.
I think I'm not sure how often you go out on the Monon Trail, but.
I'm not a developer, but.
Okay, that's fine. And I'm not suggesting that you are, but there's already a significant buffer within what the city owns. And then we believe that it, for at least for our homeowners, it will suffice for what they would need. During the, obviously, green seasons of the year, you can't see the property from the Monon Trail, so.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Then I guess we will look forward to seeing you at the APC on March 7th.
Thank you very much.
And then back here hopefully for adoption consideration on April 11th.
I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
All right, our next item on the agenda, ordinance 22-06, the Towns at Union PUD. Again, we have a council introduction this evening with an APC hearing scheduled for March 7th, recommendation April 4th, and then back for adoption consideration by this body on April 11th. Is Caleb Ernest on the line?
No, again, for this one and the next 2, we'll just have developer introductions.
Okay, apparently Caleb is enjoying Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
This, as I understand it, is John W. Shaywitz is going to discuss this, and this is a Pulte project, is that right, John?
This is the one that Pam said was uploaded to the agenda. Can you check the other agenda matters? Perhaps it was.
Right there.
Yeah.
If you could put up the location exhibit, then we'll go to the site plan.
Yeah, my apologies. We had a presentation that we thought was uploaded and it's not showing up, so.
That's fine. Let's use, if you can zoom out one more on this one, and then we'll advance to the site plan. And we'll provide a description of the project architecture separate of the illustrations that were provided to staff for uploading to the agenda. Good evening. For the record, my name is John W. Shaywitz. I'm a land use professional with the law firm of Nelson and Frankenberger. We represent the petitioner, Pulte Homes of Indiana, which was mentioned by Councilor Johns. Present tonight on behalf of the petitioner is Dave Compton, the VP of Land Acquisition with Pulte, as well as Rex Ramage, Director of Land Planning and Entitlements, and Jim Schinner, we're an attorney with our office, and other members of the development team. As noted, the matter before you this evening is the introduction of the Towns at Union PUD, which is intended to be a for-sale townhome community. The subject real estate is highlighted on the aerial image, which is now on display. There you go. Thank you. The real estate consists of approximately 13 acres, which is located east of and adjacent to Union Street and south of David Brown Drive. The real estate is currently zoned to AG SF1, and the request seeks to rezone the real estate to the Towns at Union Plan Unit Development District, which will have SFA, single family attached, as the underlying zoning classification. As shown, uses surrounding the real estate include to the north and to the east. If you follow on the screen, to our north and to our east, that's the Ashley Place apartment community.
Union Street to our west, across Union Street. Across Union Street are the Hamilton Square and Valley Farms Apartments communities. Those are also zoned MF2, multifamily, medium density district. And then immediately to our south is real estate, right here. This is real estate that is owned by and part of the Summit Lawn Cemetery, which is also zoned AGSF1. And the ground to the east of the subject will be maintained and owned by the Cemetery Association. The subject parcel is also owned by Summit Lawn, and they're the contract seller. Pulte is the contract purchaser of the proposed parcel. Connectivity exists in the vicinity along the north side of David Brown Drive in this location here, and off the map to our west. That recent connection was completed that offers pedestrian connectivity without having to travel in the drive there. If you're familiar with that space with David Brown, that's a good, very beneficial addition that was made on the north side, that pedestrian trail that connects up over to Westfield Boulevard and further on to the Monon Trail. Additionally, the Natalie Wheeler Trail runs along north-south on the west side of the street, and there's a sidewalk system that connects us to downtown as well. These connections provide safe access to restaurants along Park Street, Grand Junction Plaza, and other downtown amenities, including the Midland Trail, which will be about a 10 to 12-minute walk from the real estate. To this end, the uses and zoning classifications which surround the real estate include multifamily residential predominantly, with the exception of our south perimeter, which is entirely the parcel which is owned and will continue to operate as the Summit Lawn Cemetery. And we believe that the SFA underlying zoning classification is consistent and will complement the surrounding land uses. Can you go to our site plan, please? Yep, that's a good one. Why don't we, let's stop on there. This just plugs the site plan into the surrounding real estate. Again, Ashley Place to our east along this perimeter, and to our north. The Hamilton Square and Valley Farms over here to our west. You can see this is the single line access into the cemetery parcel today. And if you follow the pin, this is the parcel today, and the remaining, the woods, and there's about 600 feet between our east line and the closest property here on the other side of the creek. That space will continue to be owned by the Cemetery Association. You can jump to the next slide, Kevin, please. Some items to note on the site plan, if you can zoom out one. The community will be comprised of 84 townhomes. The position of townhomes would be having their front door towards Union Street rather than the garage side, typically referred to as rear load. They would face the interior drive here. So the townhomes here, these four buildings would front and face Town Road with individual sidewalks out onto the trail along that street frontage. And we've prepared and submitted an additional exhibit that we'll review at the Plan Commission about what that space looks like in terms of landscaping and details to that end. Internal to the site, as you enter the property, the homes here would face an internal green space, and their front doors would face that internal green space, with the garage facing the opposite direction here. So those are also rear-loaded townhomes. The remainder of the townhomes are all front-loaded. If the council members are familiar, Pulte has built at 161st and the Monon, and schematically this product is similar to the product that you see there, where that front door, although in this situation where those rear doors face the Monon, we have front door facing the public space, and in particular along Union Street and then internal to the site. Tree preservation areas exist along the perimeter of the real estate, with the largest area of trees preserved, incorporated along the east perimeter of the real estate around the proposed pond and amenity feature. So there's a significant wooded area that exists today in the space here along predominantly the eastern perimeter of the site that extends from the area that will be maintained by and owned by the association, the cemetery rather. That's being preserved along our perimeter here. Although a buffer is not required for this site adjacent to multifamily, nonetheless, we're going to provide a buffer and tree preservation along our north and east perimeter
for the development. Pedestrian paths are also included. It's difficult to see here, and we'll enhance our exhibit so that we can effectively convey that at a future meeting, but there'll be a pedestrian path interior to the site with a public gathering space and connected up to the north, all the way north to south through the development. I know there was one question asked earlier in the evening about the transition between this parcel and the cemetery. As you can see, this is the north perimeter of the cemetery, and along that north perimeter we'll have tree preservation, buffer area, additional plantings, and there will be a ornamental metal fence along that entire south perimeter where we share with the cemetery. Ornamental metal, not slats, but I don't want to say wrought iron because that's just the material, but an ornamental metal fence. We can provide an example of what that looks like. It's not chain link, it's not a wood privacy fence, but just an ornamental metal fence to keep out the, like I think was mentioned earlier, keep the dogs on the right side of the fence, and the right side is the north side of that fence for residents within the community. This next slide gives you an idea of the home architecture. We intend to work with the Plan Commission, provide additional illustrations, and modify our text. It was advised to us that we might look at the plan that was previously reviewed by the council this evening for text regarding that architecture, and to take that as an example, and working with the Plan Commission on coming up with a design that was amenable to the Plan Commission. However, Pulte believes that inclusion of the various home types, those including both front and alley loaded in combination with multiple elevations, will result in diverse and visually appealing neighborhood. Pulte anticipates the homes to be between 2,200 and 2,400 square feet, and anticipated sale price on average of between $400,000 and $450,000. So this isn't a price point. This is more larger units of townhomes than different areas of the community. Typically, those homes are somewhere between 1,600 and 1,900 square feet, where these would start at 2,200 and work up to 2,400 square feet, resulting in the higher value of the proposed home. In addition to that, Pulte has done a lot of market research and is really responding to the enhancements that the city has made in terms of amenities. I noted Park Street as well as Grand Junction. Those are items that are drawing the development community to this space, in particular along Union Street, where there's ready access to those amenities that will be used by future residents as well as the rest of the community. In conclusion, our matter is scheduled for public hearing in front of the Plan Commission on March the 7th. We will conduct a neighborhood meeting in advance of that. We'll send out notice to council members as well as staff, so they would have an opportunity to attend that meeting. We appreciate your time this evening. Would be glad to receive and continue to receive additional input as we move forward through the Plan Commission process. While your agenda indicates that it would be likely that we'd be back in front of you at your first meeting in April, that's really dependent on the expectation that we receive from the Plan Commission on design features as well as architecture, so it may be after that date. In all likelihood it would be, but that's the soonest we would be back in front of the council for adoption and consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'm associated with the Summit Lawn Cemetery, and I'll have to recuse myself from discussion or voting on this item, so just
Thank you.
let you know.
Understand.
Just have a quick comment. I mean, this is not directed towards Joe or you in any means, but over the last few weeks, and I'll try to make this really brief, is that we look at our city, and I had coffee with someone this week who had lived here for a while, and then I'd spoken to some people who had just moved here, and everyone in Westfield wants to be the last person that moves to Westfield. I mean, because everybody keeps saying, gosh, I mean, it's just getting too big, or it's getting this big, or whatever. And so just a philosophical thought, I started doing some research on the growth of cities and what happens to cities and where they go. And Westfield's great. There's a lot to offer. The one thing I would say, though, is we keep cramming more and more townhomes into it, and I don't mean that disrespectfully to this project or to any project, but we keep putting more and more dense housing in. And then, we look at the industry and we say, oh, we need more industry. And if you look at the finances of the city, we actually have the financial capacity to keep operating as we are today. So it's not that we really don't need more industry. It's funny. I mean, if you actually look at the financials and the money coming off tax abatements, et cetera, we don't need more industry. It is true. And we would keep operating. And we really don't need more residential. It's true. I'm not saying that would happen, but if you look at the progression of a city, everybody starts moving there. Hey, I'm moving from Indianapolis. I want to get north. Look at all the amenities. And I hear people say, oh, we moved to Chicago. Westfield's really growing. I love what they're doing. Well, they have that in Carmel. You can move to Carmel and do that, right? So what happens is everybody moves here, and then as we get dense, we fill in all the green space, and we have industry and all the housing, guess what we do? We move to Sheridan. And then we move to Tipton. And then we move onward. And I'm just saying, even from a police perspective, it takes more policemen. I mean, we have more crime. The more industry we have, it actually creates more crime. I hate to say that, but that's, if you look at the statistics, more industry creates more crime. More dense housing, more crime per acreage, per housing unit. My personal opinion is, I don't want to see more townhomes. I don't want to see more dense housing. I want to see things a little more spread out. I want to see bigger lots. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean, because I know Pulte does a good job and all, but I'd rather see bigger Pulte homes built. And I just think it's a philosophical question that we need to look at as a city, because before we know it, we will have 90,000 people living here in Westfield, and we will not have the capacity on the roads, and then we will have other issues, and everybody literally will want to move, and I won't say Kokomo, but I'll say Sheridan and Tipton, So, anyways, that's it. That was my Jerry Maguire moment.
John, can you answer me a question? Where that pond is, isn't that all wooded right now?
The woods wraps the west edge of the pond. So in general, the answer to your question is yes.
So you're gonna take out a bunch of trees to stick in a retention pond? It's an easy question, John. I know you don't want to answer it, but.
Well, if you know the answer,
Well, I just want to hear you say it today.
The pond is a location today where there trees are existing, and the trees would be removed to construct the pond.
Okay.
It isn't, I mean, we're not trying to mask that. We've provided the aerial image, and the aerial image shows the existing trees. What we have done, though, while it's not required, is we've maintained the existing tree preservation on the area on this space adjacent to multifamily, which isn't required under the ordinance. So if the property were to develop in the future, I think we've done right by the land planning for the site in maintaining the tree cover that has been provided. There isn't any guidance.
I don't know that I'd agree with that, John, but.
I understand.
Personally, and I find this design incredibly uninspiring, and I just don't think it offers much personally. Again, it looks like barracks to me. It really does, and I just have to put it out there, and I know that we want diversity of housing near our downtown, and I get it. So that makes sense, and we just approved one just south of here, 4 townhomes, 90 of them. And this is how many, 80?
I think the number of homes on the property to the south included single-family detached homes as well as townhomes.
It did, but it had a townhome component.
Correct.
And so the cemetery is gonna be bounded by 2 townhome developments, though, at that, and lined up all along the road, straight, just to give the impact. It's funny, we can't see it until it's there, to know what this is gonna feel like for the community.
Yeah. To give you an idea of that space, I would ask that the council members drive that space, which is the Pulte development on the south side of 161st Street. As you drive down 161st Street, you see effectively the streetscape that's being proposed along this segment of Union Street. And when you turn into the site, you'll see three rows of buildings deep, where here there are two rows of buildings deep looking, if you're looking south through that development, you'd be looking east through this development. I know that it's a challenge because we don't live in plan view. We'll prepare some streetscapes and some perspectives that'll help illustrate those views, and some photographs as well that'll give you an idea of how the space will actually live and feel from the ground level rather than from overhead.
Yeah, right now, I'm just thinking that this is not something I support right now. I don't know what it's gonna take to get me there personally, but I'll see it at Plan Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We did look at, for the benefit of the council, we looked at single-family residential. And always when we're in front of the Plan Commission, in front of the council, we talk about transitions. And we didn't think in this situation where we're surrounded by the multifamily in Ashley Place and Hamilton Square, as well as the other areas, that single-family residential was the right transition in this space. We felt like a for-sale product was an absolute, and we felt like townhomes at about half the density. The surrounding multifamily areas are between 10 and 11 and a half homes per acre, where this is down to about 6.5. So it's about not quite half, but it's a for-sale product, a product that Pulte feels comfortable will sell between $440,000 and $50,000, and is responsive to all the efforts that the community has made to provide connectivity as well as pedestrian access to all these amenities that we're spending millions of dollars on producing in the downtown. And you know, it may not sound like a lot, but this will generate $250,000 of additional road impact fees that I hear. There's intersections and bridges and other things that we would want to improve. $250,000 might not seem like a lot, but that's where that funding begins to come from. And we're putting it in a space where we've been advised, don't put 100 townhomes pick an intersection that's 100, a mile removed from existing development. What's the solution for this real estate? Because there needs to be a solution. We didn't think it was single family, and we felt like a more modest density than what's surrounding it today was appropriate. We don't think, well, I'll be proved wrong, we don't think we're going to get pushback from the folks who are adjacent to Oak Road, because the cemetery is maintaining 600 plus feet of property on their real estate. And we don't think we're going to get objection from the owners of the real estate to the west side, where we're producing. Well, the distinction will be dramatic in what you see when you drive down Union Street. The fronts of these will be fully landscaped with buildings rather than the parking out front along the street. And that's not a dig on anybody, it's just an observation. But again, Cindy, we'll do the, Ms. Buljarek, sorry.
It's more the design. It's the number of units and it's the design. The design of the entire development. I'm not saying architecture, I'm saying design of the development. And I feel like it's gonna seem like a wall. When you look at the buildings you have on the west side of Union, and now you're adding these on the east, almost similar size, building structure-wise, and I feel like it's gonna create a bit of a tunnel impact, it's just so lined up, it just lacks creativity.
If I might add a comment or two as well, I'll actually jump on board with a little bit of what Cindy's saying. I know topography drives some of this, but the pond, I like to see it more along Union Street than buried in the back of the property. I don't know if you guys can do that or not, but that might help break up a little bit of what we're seeing along that road, having maybe a waterfront with townhomes around it. I'll let Planning Commission deep dive into that, but just when I originally looked at it, I thought, wow, I could think of a better place to put that water feature than in the back.
There's about 20 feet of fall, but you can't see it today, but there's about 20 feet of fall between the space where the pond is and Union Street today.
And that makes it, I know that makes it very challenging. The other thing I'll just simply say is I do think it fits this spot. If we want a vibrant downtown, I think we're starting to see that with Grand Junction, the library's moving downtown. We're gonna start seeing more restaurants and businesses downtown. You need some density to support that. You really do. And I believe that this is a good transition. If I think about owning a home, I'm not sure I'd want to border or have apartments all the way around me and a cemetery to the other side. I just don't think a housing addition is gonna fit there. So I do believe townhomes are appropriate. I think it will fit. I agree with Cindy that maybe looking at the design, coming up with a little bit more creative. It reminds me a little of the Bridgewater townhomes, which at the time they were built were great, but I'm not sure when you look at standing the test of time, I'm not sure it's what we want today. So I would ask you guys to take a look at that as well and maybe come up with something a little bit more creative. That's all I have.
Thank you.
John, you've already got my comments earlier today. That I agree with Cindy to the standpoint that it looks a little bit like a tunnel, perhaps driving along Union Street. And I encourage you to look to see what was approved on the south side of the cemetery earlier this evening. I mean, that was a project where the developer first brought us townhouses lined up just like this along Union Street, 3-story, and over the process of about 2.5 months through the APC, the concept changed dramatically. So I will give you just that suggestion, and I look forward to seeing you at the APC.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda tonight is ordinance 22-07, Chatham Hills PUD Amendment 8. It's up for council introduction tonight. Then it'll go on to the APC and back for adoption consideration on the 11th. And I believe this is adding about 2 acres of property, if you will, to the southeast corner of 238th Street and Tomlinson Road, an amenity center for the for Chatham Hills?
Yeah, that's correct. And I actually am kind of covering this one this evening for introduction. Thank you, Mr. Johns. This is 2 acres, approximately 2 acres, requested to be added to the Chatham Hills Plan Unit Development for an amenity feature for that project. So looks like several athletic courts being added and parking facilities for those courts. Really just a simple addition.
Tennis courts, pickleball courts?
Yep, that's right. Just a simple addition to the PUD. I don't think they're looking for any new development standards to apply, just adding it to the existing acreage.
Okay. And then we'll look forward to hearing more about that at the APC.
Yeah, it's the southeast corner of Tomlinson and 203rd.
And 38, right? Okay. Any questions? Okay. Moving along, ordinance 22-08, Grand Millennium Center, PUD Amendment Number 2. It's up for council introduction tonight, moving on to the APC, and then hopefully back here on April 11th. And Jim Ake, are you going to talk to us about this, Jim?
I will.
What is this,
Are
a
you all
land
awake? It's nice to see you all, and nice to be before you this evening. Thank you, councilors. My name is Jim Ake. For the record, I reside at 543 Potomac Court, Westfield. I'm here representing 3132 Investors, LLC. This is a council introduction tonight of an amendment to the Grand Millennium Center, PUD ordinance number 16-51. This is a request to add a parcel 090901020700.00 located at 515 Park Street. The parcel is approximately 1 acre of land, plus or minus, to be included in the already existing Grand Millennium Center. I'll point to the map there, and the orange area is the area that is now a gravel parking lot servicing Park Street restaurants. And what we propose is moving the library north, which they've requested of us, and we're doing a land swap, giving up the blue area in exchange for that narrow parcel where the gravel parking lot is, because it's simply difficult to develop. It's just a narrow site. And that way, it allows us to move the library to the north there. And I'd like to acknowledge Cheryl Sollers with the libraries here tonight. Cheryl, I don't know if I'm going to give you a shout out because you do such a great job, fantastic. Happy Valentine's Day, and you put a lot of hard work and a lot of hours in making that library very special.
Yes,
So,
and we're very excited about having it on the corner of Park and Westfield Boulevard.
thank you.
That will be a great enhancement for the library and for the community itself. We'll be a walking distance of, Grand Junction, restaurants, I just think it'll help.
There's my advertisement. Hey, all right, so With that in mind, this will allow the new library to move to the contracted parcel up to Park Street and be a part of the new parcel that will be platted. DLM, GJ LLC, and 3132 Investors LLC have agreed to a land swap that will, once completed, then will be sold to the Westfield Library. This parcel will be added to the commercial district as per the existing PUD and will comply with all the existing standards, requirements, or others as stated in the approved PUD ordinance 16-51. 3132 Investors have worked diligently to facilitate the library's request to be adjacent to Park Street on the southwest corner and strategically along the Midland Trail. The move from their previous location to the north provides better lots for development and converts the orange area into usable land that the library will sit on, making the swap an economic win for the city. This location provides a better line of sight, improving the library's visibility and making it more accessible for pedestrians, cyclists, and motor vehicle traffic. This swap also makes the library another draw for our renaissance of our downtown and adds another prominent feature, drawing in visitors, local users of all ages. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have for us tonight.
And if I might add just a few comments, because that kind of was the ringleader of getting this thing pulled together. The library would really like to be on that corner for a couple of reasons. One, visibility. Two, it's going to tie into the Midland Trail. And we haven't released designs yet. We're still working on that with the library, but you're going to see an outdoor patio area that will tie into the trails that will just be a really nice visible piece to that corner. The other piece to it too is, and I think how we got Dan Moyer on board, is that little orange slither that he got is going to be very, very difficult to develop. It's just not very wide. By trading this land, it gives Dan a much better usable space to develop. So you're going to see the red and then that blue piece attached. It's going to be a much more linear development for him, which will allow him to, for us as a city, get a better tax revenue from it, but two, for him to have better a better swap of land to work with. In terms of the library, we're not buying an extra acre. We're just shifting the library to the north to that corner. So we're not acquiring any more land. We're just moving the library to that corner. And then the land that we're currently scheduled to be on is just going to go back to Birch for future development. So hopefully that explains everybody kind of what's happening there.
Where's the property you own?
Didn't show you. If you see where the orange block is,
Yep.
we basically own to the south of that, all the way to where you're seeing, really off the map. We go further south than what you currently see. So the buildings are going to be removed, and the library will be occupying a big chunk of
I
it.
mean, you personally.
I don't own any land downtown.
Did you
Actually, I
sell
sold
it?
I sold it about 6 months ago.
Is it,
So I
is it
have.
part, I mean, but are they extending the road or?
There has been conversation, and I don't want to speak for the mayor because I don't really know future how we're going to do that, but I know there's been talk of Maple Street continuing south, which by doing this land swap would make that much easier, and which again, the more road frontage you have, the more businesses that you'll have on that road, so. But I don't know what the plans are and whether that's a done deal or how that's going, future development will drive that.
South of Parkway Circle too, there's a land exchange also to give access to the property to the east as that would develop. So that's part of the swap as well.
Wasn't it just a couple months ago that they determined that was the ideal spot for the library?
Well, we didn't know that land was available, quite frankly, when we went down that road. And it's still, we're very happy with our current location. But this swap allows us to get to the corner, which we saw as a win. But we're very happy where we're at.
It gives visibility and again, connectivity right directly with the trail system there, the Midland Trail.
Questions, comments this evening? Hearing none, Jim, thank you. We look forward to seeing you at the APC and then back
Well,
here in a few weeks.
All right, thank you. On behalf of 3132 Investors LLC, thank you, counselors, for your time and thought tonight. We do look forward to coming back before you, and with this minor change, we're asking for your support at the library's request, and happy Valentine's Day to y'all.
Happy Valentine's.
Jim.
Thank you.
All right. Final ordinance of the night, ordinance 22-09, creating a local historic preservation commission. Up for council introduction tonight, move to a public hearing on February 28th, and then up for adoption consideration on March 14th. And Jonathan Nail is going to talk to us about this.
And congratulations to those who have made it this far. I promise to be quick. For the record, my name is Jonathan Nail. I'm city engineer for the city of Westfield. Tonight, for introduction, is ordinance 22-09. It is an ordinance that creates a local historic preservation commission here in Westfield. Before I touch on what a local preservation commission does, I want to touch quickly on how we got here. As you know, the State Road 32 project through our downtown from Poplar to East Street does impact, as proposed, the Westfield Historic District in our downtown. Because of the state funding as part of that project, we followed the State Environmental Policy Act, SEPA for short, and that policy required us to go to the State Historic Review Board and in conjunction with interested parties in that review board, come up with a list of project commitments to go towards historic mitigation. The first, and probably one of the most important commitments in those conversations from interested parties and the review board, was a local historic preservation ordinance. So our commitment as part of State Road 32 is to present to council for possible adoption a local preservation ordinance by March 2022, which is why I'm here on February 14th. Additionally, we were to draft that ordinance under the guidance of Indiana Landmarks and other historic preservation entities. I do want to take a moment to recognize Mark DeLacy. He was very generous with his time, and thank you for his patience tonight sitting through this meeting. He is here present on behalf of Indiana Landmarks. We also committed to educating City Council on the benefits and mechanics of a local preservation ordinance. We held a council education session on November 23rd, 2021. Several of you attended that educational session. And then additionally to advocate for the adoption of the ordinance, which is what I'm here tonight to do. So let's talk about local preservation ordinances. Long and short, local historic preservation ordinances protect historic buildings in local municipalities. You may say, well, wait a second, what about National Register of Historic Places? That is a list that is maintained at the federal level by the Office of the Interior, Department of the Interior. But surprisingly, it does not protect buildings. If you are a property owner of a building on the National Register, if you want to demolish that building, you have the right to do that with very little recourse. When you hear about historic districts and protection of buildings, most likely you're thinking about a local preservation ordinance that is protecting that building. So how does a local preservation ordinance work? Well, the ordinance in front of you for introduction tonight simply establishes a commission. In this case, this ordinance establishes a commission of 5 Westfield residents. Those residents are, if at all possible, are well-versed in historical architecture, planning, or other professions related to historic preservation, if at all possible. The ordinance, like I said, 5 Westfield residents that would be established as the commission, and then mechanically how it would work, for example, those 5 commissioners would do a survey of the historic properties in Westfield and come back to City Council based on the findings of that with a map of the historic districts or the historic district that they'd want to start with perhaps. That would then be passed via City Council by a future ordinance to establish that district and protection under the local preservation ordinance. So in short, as an example, for example, if the preservation ordinance that's created, preservation commission that's created establishes the Westfield Historic District as the protected district to start, and you're a property owner in that district, perhaps you wanted to make a change to your structure, maybe an addition of some kind, and those modifications are listed in detail in Section 6 of this ordinance, but you would submit an application to the Historic Commission. They would review it and look for make sure that it was appropriate within the context of the historic district, and then issue or deny a COA or a COA on the local preservation ordinance. So that approval would be done at a local level via the Historic Commission. So just to put a button on it, broad level, local preservation commission would protect buildings within an established historic district. The benefits are such that these historic buildings are preserved in our community. And additionally, there can be programs at a local level that would provide for maintenance and restoration funding potentially if it was desired by the council. So with that said, I'm trying to be brief. This is an introduction. Take your time reading through it. I'm happy to answer any questions tonight, as well as you get through this. I know Mark DeLossi is welcoming any questions you may have. He is far more experienced on these local preservation ordinances than I am, and he has been very generous with his time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
So if we have questions and comments, should we send them to you?
Yeah, you can send them to me, and I will distribute them to Mark and Indiana Landmarks for any response if I can't answer them myself.
Okay, this does involve additional legal counsel from the city. It involves a lot from staff, from community development, and a lot of other things. So are all these entities reviewing this, seeing this, and understanding it as well? And can we know their thoughts on it as we move forward?
I know that I've shared the draft of this ordinance with others. I have not gotten a ton of feedback from other city agencies, but I will absolutely make the rounds first thing tomorrow to get some feedback there and provide it to the council.
Okay. It does seem to put a lot onto community development, just from reading it. And I'm also concerned it has very little teeth. When I look at the enforcement and penalties for things such as demolition, they seem very trivial compared to the values of what we're looking at in our downtown.
Yeah, and those fines are on a daily basis within that ordinance, so those add up very quickly.
In addition to that, John, I'll just add, in the statute itself, it's one of the rare instances where it creates a private cause of action and stakeholders that are listed to basically it gives you the right to sue under the statute, to enjoin moving forward, currently, forever, and then recover your attorney's fees if you win. And there are mechanisms for doing that, not only with the high dollar amounts per day for violations, but also just that the statute itself gives you a private cause of action is a pretty darn big tool.
Which is a big departure from like now where community development enforces any of those kind of things.
So this gives you both, right? So this gives you that ability with a that's $2,500, I think the last time I read it, John, per day. And also separately, the private right to sue under the statute and recover your attorney's fees if you win.
But now when something is just demolished, like they come in with the wrecking ball or torch it, whatever they do, and then it's gone, and you can't charge them per day ongoing. I mean, it's the one fee they're gonna have to pay, right?
Well, that's not exactly right. You can, go ahead, John.
Yeah, the ordinance does specifically state that each offense is on a per day basis.
Right.
So that's in
But
section
again,
14.
when something is gone, just gone, like say they just demolished, I mean, how do you keep assessing? You can't get that back. It's like taking out a tree, you know what I mean? And you can't get that old tree back. And so,
the argument would be in violation every day since the demolition. And also, like I said, the statute gives you the ability to also stop the demolition in its tracks right away, which other statutes don't have. It's pretty rare.
right.
But all those are good questions. You feel free to field them with.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There is,
And I'm guessing we'll be hearing a lot from potentially impacted community members.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is that it also affords new developers the opportunity to get feedback from the commission and potentially do some mitigation items within a development to tip a hat to our past. So there are some benefits there as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, John. All right. Well, I guess so. Guests, do we have any residents who would like to address the council? Kevin, do you have any
Yeah,
cards?
we currently have 4 cards
4 cards.
here. So if you're still here, Joanne, I apologize, is it Tedesco? All right, pretty close. You're up first.
Thank you. I think it is still Valentine's Day. I am a new resident here in Westfield, so don't judge. I am one of those people that did move here.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here, first of all. Thanks for allowing us to do this. My name is Joanne Tedesco, and I reside at 15187 Fenchurch. And I just wanted to take this opportunity because we did move from Northwest Indiana for a certain reason. And that reason was because we have a special needs child. And unfortunately, where we were living up north, we were sacrificing her future because of the lack of quality of services that my child needed. So that's why we're here. I'm one of those people mentioned earlier, but I feel so blessed to be here in your city. Thanks to our real estate agent, actually. She said, you know what we've been looking for here, you should stop on your way to back home and stop off in Westfield and see what you think. And my husband and I, we fell in love with it. I just want to thank you for the wonderful city that you have, Mayor, because you offer a lot to my family, and I've heard that from a lot of other families who do have special needs children. So while I don't know maybe why the Disability Advisory Council might have been taken off of the agenda or discussions, I don't know any of you, and I hope to get to know you better. The potentiality of having a Disability Advisory Council would be of great interest to a lot of people in the community. And for the short time I've been here, there's a tribe of amazing people. And what I just want you to walk away with is knowing that disability isn't just my kid in special education. It can be all of us. It's really a lifespan. So it could be from birth, but it could also be from death. As we mature, we can become part of that disability community. So thank you for allowing me to speak. I would love to meet with you and buy you a cup of coffee. I'm a disability advocate. I'm just a mom. I've had some experience working up north on the commission, and I've also worked for a really great organization that advocates for families all around our state, so I hear all kinds of things. It's called the Arc of Indiana, and so I just try to help other families and feel that this advisory council would bring just everyone together, because there's so much goodness here that if we could just have this council to bring everyone to the table, much like what's happening in Fishers. I think Carmel's on their way to putting one together as well. I just wouldn't want to miss out, because we could all be there someday. So thank you for your time. Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deanne Prine.
Hi, I hate following a good speaker. I reside at 17374 Big Leaf Maple Boulevard, and I have 2 little ones. They're 4-year-old twins, and they're both also special needs children. So there's a popular saying amongst the often marginalized disabled community that nothing about us without us. So this communicates the idea that no policy should be decided by any representative without the full and direct participation of members of the group affected by that policy. And in this case, any policies that affect Westfield citizens, even the little ones. We moved here 2.5 years ago to be close to my husband's family. They own and operate Westfield Steel out here, so we're setting down roots and are here permanently. Also, because of the special education and special needs opportunities that are afforded to us in this area. I'm my kid's voice, probably for the rest of my life. My son's nonverbal. My daughter will talk your ear off, though. And if the average percentage of disabled persons holds true in Westfield, approximately 20% of the community is disabled. The 2019 census shows that 6.4% of them in Westfield are under the age of 65, and if Westfield keeps growing like it is, that percentage is going to increase exponentially. So I'm here just to ask also, I wasn't aware that the ordinance for the Disability Council is taken off the agenda, but I just wanted to add my voice here to please give them a voice so that when they're growing up here in Westfield, their voice can be heard here as well as everybody else's. So, thank you.
Danielle Easterhouse.
I'm Danielle Easterhouse. I reside at 21092 Horton Road. I'm here tonight as a mom of an 18-year-old daughter who has went all the way through Westfield schools. I'm the mother of 4 who's lived here for 26 years now. And Brooke is aging out as we would out of the school system. And one of the things that Brooke's dreamed her entire life was to be able to get a job. Brooke has autism, and one of the great things that we as a city can afford to Brooke is to give her the support and the love that we have. I've heard over and over again tonight how much we want to support people, the why, right? In the why we can bring people together, we can bring community together. Right now, it's really, really difficult when you have special needs to get together. And I just want to say Brooke's biggest dream has been to get out of high school and she'll never get a degree. She's not going to get a diploma. She'll get a certificate and she'll walk at graduation. But my Brooke worked her butt off and just got accepted at Ivy Tech in a welding program. And I can't tell you the excitement of a mother who never thought her kid would be able to do that. The struggle is, how do I get her there? She can't drive because she can't pass the driver's test. There's all these little things that we all forget about. And as a mom, I'm trying to navigate all of those things and having some central place where I can look at people and be like, hey, does anybody else do this? Like, is there anybody that knows anything? So my only ask is to give Brooke a voice in this place. And I know you guys love our kids. You support our kids. You constantly are doing things to help and support them and to love our community. And so my only ask is just to be able to hear those kids. Brooke was going to come tonight. Actually, the entire Best Buddies Club was going to come tonight, so I'm sparing you all that. But since it was pulled from the agenda, I was like, please don't. I'll make sure to mention you all. But they want you to know how much they want to be heard. So thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yolanda Kincaid.
Good evening. My name is Yolanda Kincaid. I'm the president and CEO at Janus Developmental Services, located in Noblesville, but serving all of Hamilton County and Westfield residents. We've provided supports and services to people with intellectual and developmental differences who reside in Westfield and Hamilton County. We've done so for decades. My comment today to the council is to share that I have personally observed Disability Advisory Council provide critical information to parents and caregivers, as well as important information and opportunities to the child or adult with a disability. In my experience, the conversations about and that really address some serious and systemic challenges, they really generate some good discussions as well as solutions and change to transform lives. So I sincerely appreciate the council considering the tremendous addition that a disability advisory committee can bring to the Westfield families. Realize I got pulled from the agenda, but wanted to make that comment to you all this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the last card I have, Wendy, is it Kiefel? All right.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm a member of the Carmel Advisory Committee for Disability, and I want to speak in support of what you've already heard. They've made some great points, and I won't repeat them. The Carmel Advisory Committee was formed in 2019, inspired by the Fishers Advisory Committee for Disability. It enjoyed unanimous support and was voted unanimously. Our committee in Carmel addresses 3 key areas: accessibility, employment, and social connection. In order for communities to be truly inclusive, which is not just a nice thing to do, but it's also something that we're required to do, we need committees, and we need to bring together members of the community who work voluntarily to complement the efforts of the city, to not only embrace and promote the wonderful things that cities are doing, but to help maintain those things. All of us are an illness or an accident away from disability, and when those life events happen, it's nice to know that you don't have to leave your community, that you can maintain the roots and the connections that are such an important part of life. So I encourage the council to please consider the request for a committee. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone who has joined us tonight and spoke on the disability ordinance. Just point of clarification, was not pulled from the agenda. It actually was never on tonight's agenda. And from my own personal, and I had a great deal, it's not putting on tonight's agenda. And the reason being is that I have my own disability story to share with you. I have a niece who's disabled, and she's autistic. And I hugged her and cradled her, and I've spent years with her. And she's 25 years old now. And she did graduate got her certificate from college, which was pretty neat to do. We're at Northern Illinois University. And, but she can't find a job today, and she can't drive, and she's going through all those same struggles. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about this at our next meeting. The reason I pulled it tonight was just because, my opinion, it was going to be a pretty late night. I didn't want you ladies to have to come and speak at this time of night, and I thought that the whole topic deserved more of our attention with fresh-minded counselors, as opposed to counselors who have been beat up a little bit over the last few hours. So I do apologize if you were expecting it this evening. I hope that you can make it again, perhaps next time, and look forward to hearing more from you. So thank you so much. With that, councilor comments? Do you have any this evening? Cindy, another report?
I do, for APC and ARPA. The APC met February 7th. Overall development plans and primary plats were approved for the Highlands Latin School and the Ditch Road Fire Station. We recommended approval for the Springwater PUD after changes, which we saw here tonight, voted. ARPA met on February 11th, and our major goal at that one was to finalize the application for not-for-profits to be able to apply for funds. We did get that done for the most part, and I just finalized it actually tonight. I'm waiting for some help from Christopher to be able to to get that up on our website and, you know, get it available to people. So look for that soon. It's going to be a two-parter, with the initial section being kind of an initial weed out to ensure that those who maybe aren't going to be qualifying for this funding don't go through an exhaustive process to provide us tons of information if it's not going to happen. So it's kind of a two-part thing. The second part is the supplemental that'll provide that further information that we need to do to evaluate their proposals. So our next meeting right now is scheduled for March 11th, 2 o'clock, City Hall, and we will be working on the evaluation criteria and the ranking methodology that we'll be using. I wish we had it done already, but we don't, so that will be our primary goal for that meeting. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments from councilors? Mayor Cook, do you have anything?
I'm ready for that.
I second that. Should we close the meeting? Just wish everybody happy Valentine's Day.
You're welcome. It's cold. Yeah, you know, I'm always full of my hands. They're like ice.